Dr. Evelyn Moore's hands had saved hundreds of hearts, but they couldn't save the one that mattered most. 2 years ago, a woman died on her operating table, and that failure carved a wound so deep that every sunrise felt like punishment. Tonight, broken by another brutal shift, Evelyn drives through Boston's rain-soaked streets to the only place where truth lives, a cemetery grave where she whispers apologies to a ghost. But she isn't alone. A man watches from the shadows, his mother's name carved into the stone before them, and he's been waiting for this moment. Will you stay to discover how grief becomes love and guilt becomes redemption? Hit that like button and comment your city below so I can see how far this story travels. Now, let's begin. The rain fell like judgment. Evelyn Moore sat motionless in her car outside Cedar Grove Cemetery, her forehead pressed against the steering wheel, her scrubs still damp with sweat from 14 hours in the operating room. Her hands trembled, not from exhaustion, though her body screamed for rest, but from the weight of what those hands had failed to do. 2 years, 3 months, and 17 days ago, those same hands had held a beating heart and watched it stop. The dashboard clock glowed 3:47 a.m. Most of Boston slept, but Evelyn hadn't truly slept in over 2 years. She closed her eyes and saw what she always saw, the monitor flatline, the desperate rhythm of compressions, the moment she had to step back and call it. Time of death, 4:23 a.m., Margaret Moretti, 53 years old, died of complications from a routine valve replacement surgery. Routine. That word haunted Evelyn more than any other. She pushed open the car door and stepped into the downpour. The cold October rain soaked through her jacket immediately, but she barely noticed. Her legs carried her on autopilot through the iron gates, past rows of headstones she'd memorized, to the modest granite marker nestled beneath an old oak tree. Margaret Ann Moretti. Beloved mother, 1969 to 2022. Evelyn sank to her knees in the mud, her fingers tracing the carved letters she'd touched so many times before. The cemetery was empty, silent except for rain drumming against stone and earth. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice cracking. "I'm so sorry, Margaret." The words came easier in the darkness, when no one could see the prestigious Dr. Moore, youngest head of cardiothoracic surgery at Boston Memorial, reduced to this: a woman drowning in guilt, seeking absolution from the dead. "I did everything right. I followed every protocol, but you still died, and I don't know why." Evelyn's tears mixed with rain. "Your heart just stopped, and I couldn't bring you back." She'd reviewed the surgery 1,000 times, consulted with colleagues. The autopsy had shown nothing, no surgeon error, no negligence. Margaret's death had been classified as an unfortunate complication, a tragedy of statistics. One of the small percentages that didn't make it. But statistics didn't have faces. They didn't have families. They didn't have sons who'd waited in that hospital corridor, believing their mother would come home. "I see you every time I close my eyes," Evelyn continued, her voice barely audible. "Every patient, every surgery, I'm terrified I'll fail again, that my hands will forget how to save people, that I'll let someone else's family down." Tonight had been particularly brutal. A 19-year-old kid with a gunshot wound to the chest. She'd saved him, but it had taken 4 hours and every ounce of skill she possessed. She'd left the OR shaking, had barely made it to her office before the panic attack hit. Her colleague, Dr. Sarah Chen, had found her hyperventilating into a paper bag. "Evelyn, you need help," Sarah had said, not for the first time. "You're burning out. This guilt is eating you alive." But therapy couldn't fix what was broken inside her. Medication couldn't silence Margaret's voice in her head. Only this helped, these pre-dawn confessions, these moments of raw honesty with the woman she'd failed. "I wish I could have saved you," Evelyn breathed. "I wish I could go back and find what I missed. I wish—" "She knows." Evelyn's heart stopped. She spun around, rain streaming down her face, and found herself staring at a man standing 10 feet away. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in an expensive black coat that rain rolled off like oil. His face was all sharp angles and cold composure. dark eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her breath catch. Who are you? Evelyn managed, her voice shaking. The man didn't move, didn't blink. You're the surgeon. It wasn't a question. Evelyn's mind raced, trying to place his face, but she'd never seen him before. And yet something in his bearing, in the controlled fury radiating from him, told her exactly who he was. You're Margaret's son, she whispered. Victor Moretti. He took a step closer, and Evelyn had to force herself not to retreat. I've watched you come here, every Sunday at dawn, for months. The words hit her like a physical blow. You've been watching me? My mother's grave. I visit her too. His voice was carefully neutral, but something dangerous lurked beneath the surface. I've seen you, kneeling in the mud, crying, apologizing. Evelyn's face burned with shame despite the cold rain. I didn't know. I'm sorry, I can leave. Why do you come here? The question stopped her. She looked up at Victor, at those dark eyes that seemed to see straight through her, and found herself answering with an honesty she hadn't shown anyone. Because I failed her. Because she trusted me with her life, and I couldn't save her. Because every day I wake up and remember that someone's mother, someone's family, is gone because I wasn't good enough. The hospital said there was no negligence. That doesn't make her less dead, Evelyn's voice cracked. That doesn't bring her back. That doesn't change the fact that she came to me for help and left in a body bag. Victor studied her in silence. Rain dripped from his dark hair, but he seemed as immovable as the headstones surrounding them. Finally, he spoke. Do you know what my mother said before the surgery? Evelyn shook her head, unable to speak. She said she wasn't afraid, that she trusted her doctor completely, that she'd be home in a few days nagging me about eating better and working too much. His jaw tightened. She trusted you. The words were knives. I know, and I'm so sorry I let her down. I'm sorry I let you down. Stop apologizing. Evelyn froze, shocked into silence. Victor took another step closer, and she could see his face more clearly now. The sharp cheekbones, the scar along his left eyebrow, the exhaustion etched around his eyes that mirrored her own. This was a man intimately familiar with loss. I spent the first year wanting to destroy you, he said quietly. I investigated you, learned everything about you. Your reputation, your career, your life. I wanted someone to blame, and you were the easiest target. Evelyn's heart hammered against her ribs. And now? Now I've watched you torture yourself for 2 years. I've seen you come here in rain, snow, heat. I've seen you break down over her grave more times than I can count. And I realized something. What? You loved her too. Not the way I did, but you cared. You carry her death like a stone around your neck, just like I do. Victor's eyes held hers. My mother wouldn't want this. She wouldn't want either of us destroyed by her death. Evelyn felt tears streaming down her face, indistinguishable from rain. I don't know how to let go. Neither do I. For the first time, something like vulnerability flickered across Victor's face. But maybe we don't have to do it alone. Before Evelyn could respond, headlights swept across the cemetery. A black sedan pulled up to the gates, and a man in a dark suit stepped out, scanning the area before his eyes landed on Victor. Mr. Moretti, we need to go. There's been an incident. Victor's expression transformed instantly, the vulnerability vanishing behind a mask of cold authority. I'll be there in a moment. The man hesitated. Sir, it's your uncle. He's been shot. They're taking him to Boston Memorial now. The world seemed to tilt. Evelyn found her voice. How bad? Victor's eyes snapped to her. You're asking like you can help. I'm a surgeon. It's what I do. For a long moment, they stared at each other. The woman who'd failed his mother and the man who'd spent 2 years watching her grieve. Then Victor nodded once, sharp and decisive. Come with me. Evelyn had never ridden in a car like Victor's before. The interior was all leather and polished wood, but what struck her most was the tension radiating from the man beside her. His phone rang constantly, terse conversations in Italian, clipped orders, barely controlled fury. Who shot him? she asked quietly as they raced through rain-slicked streets. Doesn't matter, they're already dead. Victor's tone was flat, final. My Uncle Leo, he's family, the only family I have left besides cousins. Evelyn absorbed this information, her medical training taking over despite her exhaustion. Gunshot wounds are my specialty. I've handled hundreds. Where was he hit? Chest. Left side. Her heart sank. That's bad. Could be the lung, heart, major vessels. We need to get him to the OR immediately. He's going to Boston Memorial. I have connections there. They'll prioritize him. I work at Boston Memorial, Evelyn said, watching recognition flicker across Victor's face. I'm head of cardiothoracic surgery. If he needs chest surgery, I'm the best option he has. Victor turned to look at her fully for the first time since they'd left the cemetery. You'd operate on him? After I failed your mother? Yes. Evelyn met his gaze steadily. Because that's what I do. I save lives. And maybe this time I can actually succeed. Something shifted in the car's atmosphere. Victor studied her with an intensity that made her skin prickle, and she had the distinct impression of being evaluated, weighed, measured against some internal standard. You're different than I expected, he said finally. What did you expect? Someone who'd run from me. From this. He gestured vaguely. Most people who learn what I am tend to put distance between us very quickly. What you are? You're an intelligent woman, Dr. Moore. You've seen my name, my associates, the way people react to me. You know what I am. Evelyn did know, had suspected from the moment his man had called him Mr. Moretti, with that particular blend of respect and fear. Victor Moretti wasn't just a grieving son. He was someone powerful, someone dangerous, someone from a world she'd only glimpsed through emergency room gunshot victims and police reports. You're mafia, she said quietly. I prefer to think of myself as a businessman with complicated family obligations. A ghost of dark humor touched his lips. But yes. And that world, my world, is why my uncle is bleeding out right now, why my mother needed surgery in the first place. Stress, they said. High blood pressure from years of worrying about her son's chosen profession. The admission hung in the air between them, weighted with guilt that matched her own. Then let me help, Evelyn said. Let me try to save someone you love this time. Boston Memorial's ER was chaos. Evelyn burst through the doors, still in her rain-soaked clothes, Victor close behind her. She spotted Dr. Chen immediately, barking orders as paramedics wheeled in a gurney. Sarah, status. Sarah's eyes widened. Evelyn, what are you? This patient just arrived. GSW to the left chest through and through. BP dropping, needs immediate surgical intervention. She stopped, staring at Victor. Who's this? Family, Evelyn said curtly. I'm taking this case. You just worked a 14-hour shift. You're exhausted. I said, I'm taking this case. Evelyn moved to the gurney, her trained eyes assessing the patient. A man in his 60s, pale, breathing labored, blood soaking through hastily applied bandages. Get him to OR3. Now. I want a full surgical team, 4 units of O-negative on standby, and call anesthesia. The controlled chaos of emergency medicine swallowed her. This was familiar territory, where her hands knew what to do even when her mind was screaming. She turned to Victor, who stood like a stone monument amid the swirling activity. You need to stay here. I'll send word as soon as I know anything. How long? Depends on what I find. Could be 2 hours, could be 6. She paused. I'll do everything I can. I know you will. Victor's voice was quiet, certain. That's why I asked you to come. Evelyn felt something shift in her chest, some small crack in the walls she'd built around herself. Then she was moving, stripping off her wet jacket, scrubbing in, transforming from the broken woman in the cemetery to Dr. Evelyn Moore, surgeon, the only identity where she still felt capable. The surgery was brutal. Leo Moretti's lung had collapsed, the bullet had nicked his subclavian artery, and internal bleeding had already cost him 2 units of blood before they'd even opened him up. But Evelyn's hands didn't shake. In the OR, with a life on the table, she became someone else. Focused, precise, Brilliant. Suction here. I need better visualization. BP's stabilizing. Good. Let's get this bleeder under control. 4 hours in, Evelyn allowed herself to believe he might make it. 6 hours in, she closed him up with careful, meticulous stitches. 7 hours after she'd first scrubbed in, she stepped out of the OR, exhausted but triumphant. Victor stood exactly where she'd left him. He wasn't alone now. 3 men in expensive suits surrounded him, clearly security, clearly dangerous. But Victor's eyes were locked on her approaching figure, and in them she saw something that made her breath catch. Hope. "He's alive," Evelyn said, and watched Victor's shoulders drop infinitesimally. "The next 48 hours are critical, but I repaired the damage. He should recover fully." Victor closed his eyes briefly, and when he opened them, Evelyn saw moisture there that might have been tears. "Thank you. It's my job." "No." Victor stepped closer, close enough that she could see the exhaustion etched in every line of his face, close enough to see that he'd been carrying his own crushing weight. "It's more than that. You didn't have to come tonight. You didn't have to help. But you did. I told you, I save lives. It's what I do." Evelyn met his gaze. "And maybe this time, I needed to remember that I can." One of Victor's men cleared his throat. "Sir, we should go. Security concerns. Give me a moment." Victor didn't look away from Evelyn. "Can I see him?" "Not yet. He's in recovery, maybe in a few hours, once he's stable." She hesitated. "You should go home. Get some rest. I'll call you with updates." "I don't think I can sleep right now." "Neither can I." They stood in the hallway, 2 people bound by death and now, somehow, by life. The hospital bustled around them, nurses, doctors, patients, but in that moment, they existed in their own bubble of shared understanding. "The cemetery," Victor said finally. "Do you go every Sunday?" "Yes, dawn usually, before my shift." "I go Saturday nights, late." A pause. "We've probably just missed each other dozens of times." The thought sent a strange shiver through Evelyn. All those nights she'd knelt in the mud, pouring out her guilt. And he'd been there hours before or after, carrying his own grief. "Maybe we were supposed to meet tonight," she heard herself say. Victor's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "Maybe we were." 3 days passed. Evelyn monitored Leo Moretti's recovery personally, refusing to hand him off to other surgeons despite her overwhelming schedule. She told herself it was professional diligence, but truthfully, she wanted to see Victor. He came every day, always in the evening, always alone. They'd talk, first about Leo's progress, then about other things. Small things. She learned he'd grown up in Boston's North End, that his mother had made the best cannoli in the city, that he read philosophy and played chess. He learned she'd grown up in Vermont, that she'd wanted to be a surgeon since she was 12, that she played piano when she needed to think. "Why medicine, Ahaz?" he asked one evening, standing beside Leo's bed as machines beeped softly. "Because I wanted to matter, to save people, to make a difference." Evelyn checked Leo's vitals, noting the improvements with satisfaction. "Sounds naive, doesn't it?" "No. It sounds pure." Victor's eyes followed her movements. "Rare in this world. What about you? Why, what you do?" Victor was quiet for a long moment. "Family. Obligation. A legacy I inherited whether I wanted it or not. My father built an empire and I was supposed to maintain it. After he died, I had no choice." "There's always a choice. That's what people who've never been trapped believe." But there was no bitterness in his voice, just statement of fact. "I tried to leave once, when I was 25. Wanted to go legitimate, build something clean. But my mother, she needed the family's protection, the insurance, the life she'd always known. So I stayed." Evelyn heard the unspoken guilt beneath his words, the mirror of her own. "You gave up your freedom for her. And she died anyway. Ironic, isn't it?" Victor looked at his uncle's sleeping form. "All the violence, all the danger in my world, and she died on an operating table during routine surgery. I'm sorry. I know. I've watched you apologize to her grave 47 times. The specific number startled her. You counted? I noticed details. It's how I've stayed alive this long. Victor turned to face her fully. I noticed that you haven't taken a day off in 2 years, that you work doubles and triples, that you volunteer at free clinics on your rare days off, that you're trying to save the entire world to make up for one person you couldn't save. The accuracy of his observation stole her breath. You're destroying yourself, Evelyn, just like I destroyed myself trying to protect my mother from a world that eventually killed her anyway. His voice was gentle but firm. We're both drowning in guilt over things we can't change. Then what do we do? I don't know, but maybe we figure it out together. The words hung in the air between them, weighted with possibility. Before Evelyn could respond, her pager went off. Emergency, code blue, trauma bay. I have to go, she said, already moving toward the door. But Victor, I'll be here, he said quietly. When you're done, I'll wait. And somehow, Evelyn knew he would. The emergency was a 16-year-old girl, car accident, internal bleeding. Evelyn worked for 3 hours straight, her hands guided by muscle memory and determination. She saved the girl's life, sent her to the ICU, and stood in the scrub room washing blood from her hands while exhaustion finally caught up with her. Her knees buckled. She grabbed the sink, but her legs gave out, the world tilting sideways. Strong arms caught her. Victor's voice in her ear. I've got you. How did you... You're supposed to be with Leo. He's stable. You're not. Victor supported her weight easily, guiding her to a chair. When's the last time you ate? Evelyn tried to remember. Yesterday, maybe? And slept? I slept a few hours after Leo's surgery. That was 3 days ago. Victor's expression was thunderous. You're going to kill yourself working like this. I'm fine. You collapsed. That's not fine. He pulled out his phone, sent a rapid text. My car will be here in 5 minutes. You're coming with me. I can. I have patients who will be seen by other capable doctors. Sarah Chen already agreed to cover your shift. Evelyn stared at him. You asked Sarah to cover for me? I asked the hospital administrator who asked Sarah. Don't worry, I made a generous donation to the cardiology wing. They were very accommodating. Victor's expression softened. Let someone take care of you for once, Evelyn. Just for tonight. She was too exhausted to argue, too drained to fight. And truthfully, the thought of being alone in her empty apartment, surrounded by medical journals and takeout containers, made something inside her break a little more. Okay, she whispered. Just for tonight. Victor's home was nothing like Evelyn expected. Not some cold penthouse or ostentatious mansion, but a restored brownstone in Beacon Hill with warm lighting and comfortable furniture. Books lined the walls. Classical music played softly. It felt like a home, not a showpiece. Sit, Victor ordered, guiding her to a leather couch. I'll make food. You cook? My mother insisted, said a man who couldn't feed himself was useless. He disappeared into the kitchen, returning minutes later with pasta, simple but perfectly prepared. Eat, all of it. Evelyn obeyed, too hungry to protest. The food was delicious. Homemade sauce, fresh pasta, exactly the right amount of salt. She ate until her plate was empty, feeling strength slowly return to her limbs. Better? Victor asked, watching her from across the coffee table. Much, thank you. She set down her fork. I can't remember the last time someone cooked for me. Then you need better people in your life. I don't really have people, just colleagues and patients. The admission came easier than it should have. I pushed everyone away after your mother died. Friends, family, anyone who tried to help. I didn't deserve comfort when I'd failed so completely. That's the guilt talking. Maybe, but it's also the truth. Evelyn met his eyes. Don't you do the same thing? Push people away because of what you do, who you are? Victor's jaw tightened. That's different. I push people away to protect them. My world is dangerous. People close to me become targets. Like your uncle. Yes. Like Leo. Like my mother, who died young because the stress of my life aged her prematurely. He stood, pacing to the window overlooking the street. I've spent 15 years keeping people at arm's length. It's safer that way. Safer for them. What about for you? I don't matter. That's the guilt talking, Evelyn said, echoing his words back at him. Victor turned, something like surprise crossing his face. Then slowly he smiled, a real smile, the first she'd seen from him. It transformed his features, made him look younger, less burdened. You're very perceptive, Dr. Moore. I've had time to study grief. I'm quite familiar with its patterns. She stood, moving to join him at the window. Outside, Boston glittered in the darkness. We're quite a pair, aren't we? Both destroying ourselves over things we can't change. Yes, though I think you're braver than I am. How so? You face your guilt head on. Visit that grave, acknowledge your pain, try to work through it. Victor's voice was quiet. I just bury mine deeper and pretend it doesn't exist. Evelyn looked up at him, at this dangerous man who'd shown her more gentleness than anyone in 2 years. Maybe we can help each other, learn to live with what we've lost. Is that possible? I don't know, but I'd like to try. Victor held her gaze for a long moment. Then slowly, he reached out and took her hand. His palm was warm, calloused, completely engulfing hers. The touch sent electricity up her arm. Stay tonight, he said. Not like that. Just stay. Sleep in a real bed, in a quiet house. Let yourself rest. Evelyn knew she should say no, should maintain professional boundaries, should recognize the dangerous intimacy growing between them. But she was so tired of being alone, so exhausted from carrying her guilt in isolation. Okay, she whispered. I'll stay. Victor's guest room was simple but comfortable. Soft sheets, blackout curtains, silence. Evelyn showered, borrowed one of Victor's shirts, and slipped into bed expecting to lie awake as she always did, her mind racing through surgical complications and what-ifs. Instead, she fell asleep in minutes. She woke to sunlight streaming through the windows and the smell of coffee. For the first time in 2 years, she'd slept through the night without nightmares. The realization brought tears to her eyes. Victor was in the kitchen, reading the newspaper, 2 cups of coffee already poured. He looked up when she entered, his expression softening. You slept. I did. I don't remember the last time I slept like that. Good. He pushed a cup toward her. Drink. Then I'll drive you home so you can change. They fell into comfortable silence, sipping coffee as morning light filled the kitchen. It felt domestic, intimate, like something they'd done 100 times before, and that terrified Evelyn more than anything. Victor, I know. I'm not asking for anything, Evelyn, just offering friendship. Someone who understands what you're going through. He set down his cup. Unless you don't want that. I do. I want that very much. She hesitated. But your world is separate from this. From you. I promise. His eyes held hers. I won't let my life touch yours. You're too important. The words settled around her heart like a shield. She believed him, though perhaps she shouldn't have. Believed that this man, this dangerous, powerful man, would keep her safe from the darkness he inhabited. Okay, she said softly. Friends. But even as she said it, Evelyn knew it was already more than that. Knew that something had shifted between them in that cemetery, in that hospital, in this quiet morning kitchen. Something that felt like the beginning of healing, or the beginning of something that would change everything. Outside the window, Boston came alive with Sunday morning activity. And somewhere in the city, in a quiet cemetery beneath an old oak tree, Margaret Moretti's grave waited for visitors who might finally be ready to stop apologizing and start living. But first, Evelyn had to learn how. And somehow, impossibly, the son of the woman she'd failed might be the one to teach her. The story was just beginning. The friendship between Evelyn and Victor grew in the quiet spaces between their complicated lives. Early morning coffee before her shifts, late evening conversations after his business concluded, stolen hours where they could forget the weight they both carried. 3 weeks passed like water through fingers, each day pulling them deeper into each other's orbit. Evelyn found herself texting him between surgeries, sharing small victories and frustrations. Victor sent her photos from his morning runs through Boston Common, always at dawn when the city was still sleeping. They never spoke about what was building between them, this thing that had grown far beyond friendship, but remained carefully unnamed. "You're different lately," Sarah observed one afternoon as they reviewed patient charts. "Lighter. When's the last time you went to the cemetery?" Evelyn realized with a start that she hadn't been in over a week, the longest gap since Margaret's death. "I've been busy." Busy or finally healing? Sarah's expression was knowing. "I've seen that man waiting for you, the one from the Moretti case. Victor." "He's a friend." "Evelyn, I've known you for 5 years. You don't do friends. You do work and guilt and more work." Sarah touched her arm gently. "Whatever this is, whoever he is, I'm glad. You deserve happiness." But did she? Evelyn carried that question through her rounds, through 3 successful surgeries, through the evening as she changed out of her scrubs and found Victor waiting in the parking garage, leaning against his car with 2 cups of coffee and a smile that made her heart stutter. "Rough day?" he asked, handing her a cup. "Long, not rough. Saved 3 lives. That's a good day." She sipped the coffee. Perfect, exactly how she liked it. He'd learned her preferences without asking. "How was yours?" "Complicated. Family business always is." Something dark flickered across his face. "Sometimes I wonder what my life would look like if I'd walked away. Really walked away. Would you be happier?" "I'd be alone. Free, maybe, but alone." Victor's eyes found hers. "Now I'm starting to think some things are worth staying for." The words hung heavy with meaning. Evelyn's pulse quickened. "Victor." Her phone rang. The emergency ringtone. She answered immediately. "Dr. Moore." "Evelyn, it's Dr. Patterson from Mass General. We have a situation. Multi-car pileup on I-93. We're overwhelmed and Boston Memorial is closest for overflow. You're the best thoracic surgeon in the city. We need you." "I'm off duty. Dr. Chen is on call. She's already in surgery. This is bad, Evelyn. 6 critical patients. All need immediate intervention. Please." Evelyn looked at Victor, saw understanding in his eyes even before she spoke. "I'll be there in 10 minutes." She ended the call, already moving toward her car. "I'm sorry, I have to—" "Go, save lives. It's what you do." Victor caught her hand briefly, squeezed it. "I'll wait." "You don't have to—" "I'll wait," he repeated, and there was something fierce in his voice, something that promised he would wait as long as it took. Evelyn drove to Mass General with her heart hammering. The ER was chaos incarnate. Blood, screaming, doctors shouting orders. She dove in immediately, assessing the worst cases, triaging who needed surgery first. "This one first," she ordered, pointing to a woman in her 30s, chest crushed by steering wheel impact. "Get her to OR 2. I'll scrub in." The surgery lasted 4 hours. The woman's ribs had punctured both lungs, her heart was bruised, and internal bleeding had nearly killed her before they'd even opened her chest. But Evelyn's hands were steady, her mind clear, her focus absolute. She saved the woman's life. The second surgery was a teenager, similar injuries but complicated by a pre-existing heart condition. Another 3 hours. Another life saved. The third patient didn't make it. A man in his 50s, too much damage, too much blood loss. Evelyn called time of death at 2:47 a.m. and felt the familiar guilt crushing down on her chest. She stumbled out of the OR, stripped off her bloody gloves, and found herself in the corridor outside the surgical wing, sliding down the wall until she sat on the cold linoleum floor. 2 saved, 1 lost. The math should have felt like victory, but all she could feel was the weight of failure. Footsteps approached. She looked up, expecting Sarah or another doctor. Victor knelt beside her, still in his suit from earlier, looking completely out of place in the hospital corridor. "You said you'd wait," Evelyn whispered. "I did." He sat down next to her, their shoulders touching. 6 hours. I've been in the waiting room." "You should have gone home." "I said I'd wait." Victor's voice was gentle but firm. "Tell me about it." And she did. Told him about the surgeries, the saves, the loss. Words poured out of her in the empty corridor, all the fear and triumph and guilt she normally kept locked away. Victor listened without judgment, without trying to fix her, just present and solid beside her. "You saved 2 people tonight," he said when she finished. 2 families who get to keep someone they love because of you. But the third was already dying when he arrived. You gave him a chance. That's all anyone can do. Victor turned to look at her. You can't save everyone, Evelyn. That's not failure. That's being human. Then why does it feel like failure every time? Because you care. Because you carry every loss like it's a personal betrayal of your oath. His hand found hers. But that's also what makes you an extraordinary surgeon. You care so much it nearly destroys you, and I think that's both your greatest strength and your deepest wound. Evelyn stared at their joined hands, his fingers warm and strong around hers. You understand. I understand what it's like to carry the dead with you. I have a list in my head of everyone who died because of my choices, my world, my failure to protect them. My mother's at the top of that list. And like you, I've spent years trying to balance the scales. Does it work, the balancing? No, but maybe we're asking the wrong question. Maybe it's not about balancing. Maybe it's about learning to live with the weight. Evelyn leaned her head against his shoulder, too exhausted to maintain professional distance, too drained to pretend she didn't need this comfort. Victor's arm came around her, pulling her closer, and for the first time in 2 years, she let someone hold her while she fell apart. They sat like that for a long time, 2 broken people finding shelter in each other, until Evelyn's pager went off again. She checked it, then sighed. The woman from the first surgery, she's stable and asking for the doctor who saved her. Go, Victor said, helping her to her feet. I'll be here when you're done. You don't have to eat, Evelyn. He cupped her face in his hands, his dark eyes intense. I'll always wait, however long it takes. Understand? She nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. Then she was moving, walking toward the recovery ward, but carrying something warm and fragile in her chest that felt dangerously like hope. The woman from the first surgery was named Jennifer. She had 2 kids and a husband who sat beside her bed crying with relief. When Evelyn checked her vitals, Jennifer grabbed her hand. Thank you. My daughter's getting married next month. I almost missed it. You'll be there, Evelyn assured her. You'll dance at your daughter's wedding. Walking out of that room, Evelyn felt something shift inside her. This was why she became a surgeon. Not to be perfect, not to save everyone, but to give people chances, to give families more time together, to matter in the moments when it counted most. Victor was in the waiting room reading a book, completely unbothered by the suspicious looks from security. He stood when he saw her. How is she? She'll live. She'll see her daughter get married. Evelyn felt tears pricking her eyes again, but these were different. I saved her, Victor. She gets to keep living because of what I did tonight. Yes, he said simply. She does. They walked out of Mass General together into the pre-dawn darkness. Boston was quiet, the city holding its breath before sunrise. Victor's car was the only one in the lot. Let me take you home, he said. I don't want to go home. The words surprised her, but they were true. Her apartment felt empty, cold, full of ghosts. I don't want to be alone. Then come with me. They drove through empty streets back to Victor's brownstone. He made her tea this time, something herbal and soothing, and they sat together on his couch as the sky began to lighten. Tell me about your mother, Evelyn said quietly. Not the patient, the person. Victor was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then he began to speak, his voice rough with memory. She was strong, terrifying sometimes. She knew what I was, what my father had been, but she never turned away from it, just demanded I be better, smarter, more careful. He smiled slightly. She taught me to cook because she said any man who couldn't feed himself was useless. Taught me to read philosophy because she said power without wisdom was just violence. She tried to give me tools to be something more than what I was born to be. She loved you very much. Yes, and I failed her, brought stress into her life that literally aged her heart until it couldn't take anymore, then sent her to a hospital for a routine surgery that killed her. Victor's jaw clenched. I've orchestrated hostile takeovers, eliminated threats, navigated wars between families, but I couldn't keep my own mother alive. She had an undiagnosed arrhythmia. It wasn't detectable pre-surgery. When I opened her up, her heart just stopped. We tried everything for 20 minutes. Defibrillation, massage, drugs. Nothing worked. Evelyn's voice cracked. It wasn't your fault. It wasn't even really mine. Sometimes people just die and there's no one to blame. Do you believe that? I'm starting to. They looked at each other, two people slowly learning to forgive themselves, to see that not all tragedy required a villain. The sun broke over the horizon, golden light streaming through the windows, and Evelyn felt something in her chest crack open. I don't want to go to the cemetery anymore, she whispered. I don't want to spend every Sunday apologizing to a ghost. Then don't. But what do I do instead? How do I let go? Victor reached out, took her hand again. Live. Honor her by living instead of dying slowly from guilt. That's what she'd want. That's what they all want. Is that what you're going to do? I don't know. My life is complicated, dangerous. I can't just walk away from my obligations. He paused. But maybe I can find something worth living for beyond duty and revenge. The air between them thickened with unspoken words. Evelyn's heart hammered as Victor's thumb traced circles on her palm, such a simple touch that felt like it meant everything. I should go, she said, not moving. You should. I have a shift in 3 hours. You do. Victor, I know. He stood, pulling her up with him, but didn't let go of her hand. I know what this is, Evelyn. I know what's happening between us, and I know all the reasons it shouldn't. Your world is dangerous, violent, full of people who would hurt you to hurt me. His eyes were dark, intense. I should let you go. Push you away before you become a target. That's what I've done with everyone for 15 years. But I'm selfish and tired of being alone, and you make me feel like maybe I could be something more than what I was born to be. Victor cupped her face in his hands. You make me want to try. Evelyn's breath caught. I'm broken. I'm drowning in guilt and trauma, and I don't know if I'll ever be whole again. I'm a criminal who's destroyed lives and made fortunes on other people's suffering. I think we're both too damaged for perfect happy endings. His forehead touched hers. But maybe we could have something anyway. Something real. This is insane. Probably. I barely know you. You know me better than anyone has in years. Victor, he kissed her. Gentle at first, questioning, giving her every chance to pull away. But Evelyn didn't pull away. She leaned in, her hands fisting in his shirt, kissing him back with 2 years of loneliness and longing and desperate need to feel something other than guilt. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Victor rested his forehead against hers. Stay, he whispered. Not just tonight. Stay with me. Let us try this. Whatever this is. Every rational part of Evelyn's brain screamed warnings. This was dangerous, impossible, a collision of worlds that had no business touching. But her heart, her tired, broken, slowly healing heart, wanted this more than it had wanted anything in years. Okay, she breathed. Okay. Victor pulled her close, and Evelyn let herself be held, let herself imagine a future where guilt didn't define her, where she could be more than the surgeon who failed Margaret Moretti, where she could be a woman falling in love with a dangerous man who somehow made her feel safe. They stood like that as sunrise painted the room gold, two damaged people choosing each other despite every reason not to, and for the first time in 2 years, Evelyn felt something that might have been happiness. But in the following days, she learned that happiness in Victor's world came with a price. The first sign of trouble came on a Thursday evening. Evelyn was leaving the hospital when she noticed a car following her. Black sedan, tinted windows, keeping 3 cars back. Her pulse quickened, but she told herself she was being paranoid. Then the car followed her home. She called Victor immediately. There's a car following me. Where are you? His voice went cold, professional. 2 blocks from my apartment. Don't go home. Drive to the Four Seasons. I'll meet you there. And Evelyn, don't stop for anything. Evelyn's hand shook on the wheel, but she followed his instructions. The sedan followed her all the way to the hotel, only disappearing when she pulled up to the valet stand. Victor was already there, flanked by 2 of his men. Inside, now! He guided her through the lobby to an elevator, his hand on her lower back, his body positioned between her and potential threats. They rode to the penthouse in tense silence. Once inside, Victor's professional mask cracked. "Are you okay? Did they approach you? Say anything." "No, they just followed. Victor, what's happening?" He paced like a caged animal, fury radiating from him. "Someone's watching you, sending me a message." "A message about what?" "About you. About us." Victor's jaw clenched. "I have enemies. People who would hurt anyone close to me. I thought I'd been careful, but clearly someone noticed." Fear iced through Evelyn's veins. "So what do we do?" "I handle it. You stay here tonight where my security can protect you, and tomorrow I find out who had the audacity to threaten you and make them regret it." The coldness in his voice should have terrified her. Instead, she felt strangely safe. "You can't just—" "Can't what? Protect you? That's exactly what I'm going to do." Victor stopped pacing, turning to face her. "This is my world, Evelyn. This is what I tried to warn you about. People die in my world. Good people. Innocent people. People whose only crime was being close to me. Like your mother." The words hung between them. Victor's expression crumpled. "Yes, like my mother. And I can't let that happen to you." Evelyn crossed to him, took his face in her hands. "Then don't. Protect me. I trust you." "You shouldn't." "Too late." They stood like that, foreheads touching, breathing each other's air. Then Victor's phone rang. He answered with a curt, "What?" His expression darkened as he listened. "When? How many? I'll be there in 20 minutes. He ended the call, his eyes meeting Evelyn's. "I have to go. Family emergency." "What kind of emergency?" "The kind I can't explain and you're safer not knowing about." He pulled her close, kissed her hard. "Stay here. My men are outside. Don't open the door for anyone but me. Promise." "Victor, promise me." "I promise." He left, and Evelyn was alone in the penthouse with 2 armed guards outside the door and more questions than answers. She tried to sleep but couldn't, her mind racing through everything that had happened. She'd known Victor was dangerous, had known his world was violent, but knowing intellectually and experiencing it directly were very different things. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Ask your boyfriend about the warehouse fire in Southie. Ask him how many men burned alive. Ask him if he felt anything when he gave the order." Evelyn's blood ran cold. She stared at the message, her hands shaking. This was someone trying to drive a wedge between them. She knew that logically. But the words burrowed into her brain anyway, planting seeds of doubt. Who was Victor Moretti, really? What had he done in the name of family and power? Could she love a man capable of such violence? The door opened. Victor entered, blood on his shirt cuff, exhaustion carved into every line of his face. He saw her expression immediately. "What happened?" Evelyn showed him the text. Victor read it, his jaw clenching. That warehouse was 5 years ago. It was a message to a rival family that had kidnapped and tortured my cousin. Yes, I gave the order. Yes, men died. And no, I didn't lose sleep over it because they were monsters who deserved what they got. The brutal honesty stole her breath. "You killed people." "I've killed a lot of people, Evelyn. I'm not a good man. I've never pretended to be." Victor's eyes held hers. "But I've never hurt anyone who didn't hurt my family first. I've never touched an innocent. And I will burn the entire city to ashes before I let anyone harm you." That's not comforting. It's not meant to be comforting. It's meant to be honest. He moved closer. "This is who I am. This is what I do. If you can't live with that, tell me now and I'll let you go. Put security on you, make sure you're safe, and walk away. But if you stay, if you choose this, then you accept all of me. The good, the bad, and the monstrous." Evelyn looked at him, this dangerous, damaged man who'd shown her more gentleness than anyone in years, who'd waited 6 hours in a hospital corridor just to make sure she was okay, who'd held her while she fell apart and never asked her to be anything other than what she was. "I'm a surgeon," she said quietly. "I save lives. That's my purpose, my calling. Everything I am goes against everything you do." "I know. But I—" Her voice broke. I think I'm falling in love with you anyway, and that terrifies me more than any threat or text message or warehouse fire. Victor closed the distance between them, pulling her into his arms. I'm already in love with you. Have been since that night in the cemetery when you knelt in the mud and apologized to a ghost. I just didn't want to admit it. They kissed, desperate and fierce, two people choosing each other despite every rational reason not to. When they finally broke apart, Evelyn whispered against his lips, "So what happens now?" "Now I find who's threatening you and eliminate the problem. Now I wrap you in so much security they'd need an army to touch you. Now I figure out how to keep you safe while still letting you be who you are." Victor's arms tightened around her. "And maybe, if we're very lucky and very careful, we figure out how to make this impossible thing work." "That's a lot of unknowns." "Yes, but some things are worth the risk." Evelyn thought about Margaret Moretti, about all the guilt and grief she'd carried for 2 years, about how Victor had helped her see that not all tragedy needed a villain, that sometimes people just died and all you could do was honor them by living. And she realized that love, real love, was always a risk, always a leap into the unknown. But maybe that was the point. Maybe living meant accepting that you couldn't control everything, couldn't save everyone, could only try your best and hope it was enough. "Okay," she said, "let's try." And as Victor held her close, as dawn broke over Boston once again, Evelyn felt the last pieces of her guilt finally begin to crack and fall away. She would always carry Margaret's memory, but maybe she could carry it as a reminder to live fully, love deeply, and accept that being human meant being imperfect. The path ahead was uncertain, dangerous, full of shadows and threats she couldn't yet see, but for the first time in 2 years, Evelyn Moore felt ready to face them. Not alone, never alone again. Together, they would find a way. They had to. The threat against Evelyn became Victor's singular obsession. Within 48 hours, he'd identified the source, a captain in the Russo family testing boundaries, seeing if the rumors about Victor's new weakness were true. The man disappeared on a Saturday night, and Victor returned to Evelyn's apartment at dawn with blood under his fingernails and shadows in his eyes. She didn't ask what happened. Some things were better left unspoken. But the incident changed something between them. Evelyn moved through her days hyper-aware of the danger lurking at the edges of Victor's world, while Victor became almost paranoid about her safety. 2 guards followed her everywhere now, discreet but always present. Her apartment had been upgraded with a security system that could withstand a military assault. And Victor called her hourly, needing to hear her voice, needing confirmation she was still safe. "This is suffocating," Evelyn finally said one evening, 3 weeks after the threat. They were in Victor's study, him reviewing financial reports while she tried to read a medical journal. "I can't breathe without someone watching. I can't go to the grocery store without an armed escort. This isn't living, Victor." He looked up, exhaustion carved into every line of his face. "Would you prefer to be dead?" "Don't be dramatic." "I'm not. You have no idea how many people would love to hurt you just to watch me bleed." Victor set down his papers. "I've made a lot of enemies, Evelyn. Powerful people who play long games. The security isn't negotiable." "Everything's negotiable. Not this. Not your life." His voice went cold. "I won't bury another person I love. I can't." The raw pain in his admission silenced her arguments. Evelyn crossed to him, knelt beside his chair, took his hands in hers. "I'm not going anywhere, but we need to find a middle ground. I can't be a prisoner in my own life." "Then what do you suggest?" "I don't know, but there has to be a way to be safe without being suffocated." She paused. "Maybe I should meet them. Your family, your associates. Let them see I'm not just some weakness to exploit." Victor's expression darkened. "Absolutely not." "Why?" "Because once they know who you are, really know you, there's no going back. You'll be part of this world forever. Every alliance, every war, every blood feud, you'll be caught in the middle of it." His hands tightened on hers. "I wanted to keep you separate, clean, untouched by what I am." "That's impossible, and you know it. I'm already part of this whether I've met them or not." Evelyn's voice was gentle but firm. Let me face it head on instead of hiding like some shameful secret. Victor studied her for a long moment, something like pride flickering in his dark eyes. You're braver than I deserve. Or more stubborn. Both. He pulled her into his lap, held her close. Okay. Sunday dinner. My Uncle Leo is hosting. He owes you his life anyway. I'll introduce you properly to the family. But Evelyn, you need to understand what you're walking into. These people are dangerous. They'll smile and ask about your work while calculating how to use you against me. You can't show weakness. I perform open-heart surgery for a living. I think I can handle Sunday dinner. We'll see. The confidence Evelyn felt in Victor's study evaporated the moment they pulled up to Leo Moretti's compound in the North End. It wasn't a house. It was a fortress. High walls, security gates, armed men stationed at intervals. Inside, the home was beautiful in an ostentatious way, all marble and gold and expensive art that screamed money and power. Leo himself greeted them at the door, looking robust and healthy 3 months after his surgery. Dr. Moore, the woman who saved my life. He pulled her into an enthusiastic embrace that made Victor's security detail tense. Come, come. Everyone is eager to meet you. The dining room held 20 people, all watching Evelyn with varying degrees of curiosity and calculation. Victor's hand settled on her lower back, a gesture of both support and possession. Everyone, this is Dr. Evelyn Moore. Evelyn, this is my family. Leo made introductions. Cousins, associates, lieutenants, their wives. Names and faces blurred together, but Evelyn forced herself to smile, to shake hands, to meet each assessing gaze with calm professionalism. She felt like a specimen under a microscope, being examined for weaknesses and value. Dinner was an elaborate affair, course after course of Italian food prepared by Leo's personal chef. The conversation flowed in Italian and English, peppered with coded references Evelyn didn't understand. She sat beside Victor, acutely aware of every eye on her, every pause in conversation when people assessed her reactions. So Dr. Moore, said a woman across the table, Sophia, one of the cousin's wives, how does it feel dating a man like Victor? Must be quite different from your hospital colleagues. The question was barbed with false sweetness. Evelyn met her gaze evenly. Victor is Victor. What he does professionally is separate from who he is as a person. How diplomatic. Sophia's smile didn't reach her eyes. Though I wonder how you reconcile saving lives with loving a man who takes them. Sophia. Victor's voice carried a warning. It's okay, Evelyn interrupted, her hand on his arm. She looked at Sophia directly. I reconcile it by understanding that the world isn't black and white, that good people sometimes do bad things, and bad people sometimes do good things, that judgment without context is just prejudice dressed up as morality. Silence fell around the table. Then Leo laughed, a booming sound that broke the tension. I like her. She has spine. Victor, you chose well. The dinner continued, but something had shifted. The family still watched her, but with more respect, less open hostility. Evelyn fielded questions about her work, told sanitized stories about surgeries and patients, and slowly began to see the dynamics at play. This was a family business, yes, but it was still a family. They protected their own, valued loyalty above all, and saw Victor as their leader. After dinner, Leo pulled Victor aside for a private conversation, leaving Evelyn with the wives. They circled her like sharks scenting blood. You know he'll never leave this life, said Maria, an older woman married to one of Leo's lieutenants. Men like Victor, they're born to it. It's in their blood. I'm not asking him to leave. No? You're not hoping to reform him? Change him into something respectable? Maria's eyes were sharp. That's what they all think. That love will transform the beast into a prince. I don't want to change him. I want to understand him. Evelyn met her gaze. And I want to build something with him that acknowledges what he is without pretending it doesn't exist. Honest, at least. Sophia studied her nails. But honesty won't protect you when the bullets start flying. Victor's enemies won't care that you're a doctor, that you save lives. They'll see you as his weakness and exploit it. Then I'll deal with it when it happens. Such confidence. Maria smiled, but it was almost kind. You'll need it. This life. It's not for the faint of heart. You'll see things you can't unsee, know things you can't unknow. And you'll have to choose every day whether loving him is worth the price. Before Evelyn could respond, Victor returned, his expression troubled. We need to go. There's been a situation. They left immediately, Victor's tension radiating through the car. Evelyn waited until they were on the highway before asking, What kind of situation? Your brother. Her blood went cold. What about my brother? He's in trouble. Gambling debts to some very dangerous people. Victor's jaw clenched. Leo just got word that collectors are looking for him. They plan to make an example. Evelyn's younger brother Danny had always been irresponsible, always chasing the next big score, but she'd thought he'd cleaned up his act. How much does he owe? 80,000. Jesus. Evelyn's mind raced. I can get the money. I have savings. I can take a loan. It's not about the money anymore. It's about respect. He borrowed from people who don't give extensions or second chances. They'll hurt him to send a message even if the debt gets paid. Then what do we do? Victor was silent for a long moment. I can make it go away. One phone call, and your brother's debt disappears. No violence, no consequences. But Evelyn, his eyes met hers in the rearview mirror. If I do this, if I use my influence to protect your family, then you're truly in this world. There's no pretending you're separate anymore. He's my brother. I know. That's why I'm asking. This is your choice. I can step in, or you can try to handle it yourself. But you need to decide now. Evelyn thought about Danny, about the little boy who'd followed her around worshiping his big sister, about the troubled teenager who'd spiraled after their parents divorced, about the man he'd become, flawed, irresponsible, but still her brother. She thought about Margaret Moretti, about how family was everything, about how some choices changed you irrevocably. Make the call, she whispered. Please, save him. Victor nodded once, then pulled out his phone. The conversation was brief, conducted in Italian, but Evelyn heard the authority in his voice, the implicit threat. When he ended the call, his expression was grim. It's done. The debt is forgiven. No one will touch him. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Your brother needs to understand how close he came to dying, and he needs to know that this protection comes with conditions. What conditions? He stays clean. No more gambling, no more debts, no more stupid decisions that put you at risk. Victor's voice went cold. Because if he screws up again, I won't be able to protect him. The people I just called in favors with won't extend mercy twice. They drove to Danny's apartment in Dorchester, a rundown building that made Evelyn's heart ache. Her brother answered the door looking haggard, eyes bloodshot, jumping at shadows. Evie? Danny stared at her, then at Victor. What are you doing here? Saving your life, apparently. Evelyn pushed past him into the apartment. When were you going to tell me you owed $80,000 to loan sharks? I was handling it. You were about to get yourself killed, her voice cracked. Do you have any idea what these people do to make examples, Danny? Do you understand what almost happened to you? I know, okay? I know I screwed up. Danny's hands shook. But I had a sure thing, a horse that couldn't lose. There's no such thing as a sure thing. There never is. Evelyn felt tears burning behind her eyes. I've spent 2 years drowning in guilt over people I couldn't save. I will not add you to that list. Victor stepped forward, his presence filling the small apartment. Your debt has been erased. The people you owed no longer have any claim on you, but this comes with conditions. Danny's eyes widened. Who are you? Someone who cares about your sister enough to burn favors keeping you alive, which means you owe me now. Not money, respect. You stay clean. No gambling, no debts, no trouble. You get a real job, you keep your head down, and you never, ever put Evelyn at risk again. Or what? Or I let nature take its course next time. And believe me, there will be people lined up to collect what you owe. Victor's voice was deadly quiet. Your sister asked me to save you. I did it for her, not for you. Don't make me regret it. Danny looked at Evelyn, saw something in her expression that made him pale. You're with him? With someone like... Yes, I am. Evelyn's voice was firm. And right now, that's the only reason you're still breathing. So maybe show some gratitude instead of judgment. Her brother seemed to crumple. I'm sorry, Evie. I'm so sorry. I just wanted to make some money, pay you back for all the times you helped me. I don't need money. I need you alive and safe. She pulled him into a hug, this broken man who was still her little brother despite everything. Please, Danny, get help, get clean, build a real life. I will. I promise. They left him there with Victor's card and strict instructions to call if anyone came around asking questions. In the car, Evelyn finally let herself break down, tears streaming down her face. He's going to screw up again, she said bitterly. He always does. Maybe, but you gave him a chance. That's all anyone can do. Victor pulled her close. And if he wastes it, that's on him, not you. I'm tired of losing people I love. I know, me too. They drove back to Victor's brownstone in silence, both carrying the weight of choices made and consequences accepted. Inside, Victor poured them both whiskey, and they sat together on the couch, processing the night. Your family thinks I'm naive, Evelyn said quietly. They think I don't understand what I'm getting into. They might be right. Maybe, but I'm learning. She looked at him. Tonight you used your power to protect my family. You called in favors, probably made enemies, definitely complicated your business relationships. All for someone who's done nothing but cost you trouble. You're not trouble, you're... Victor paused, searching for words. You're the first good thing in my life in years. The first person who sees me and doesn't just see a monster or a meal ticket or a threat. You see me, Evelyn, the real me. And you chose to stay anyway. Because I love you. Because you're either incredibly brave or incredibly foolish. But his arms tightened around her. Either way, I'm grateful. They sat like that for a long time, drawing comfort from each other's presence. Then Evelyn's phone rang. The hospital. Emergency. Dr. Moore, we need you. Mass casualty event. Nightclub shooting. At least 15 critical injuries. Evelyn was already moving, shrugging on her coat. I'll be there in 10 minutes. Victor drove her, breaking every speed limit, his hand tight on the wheel. At the hospital entrance, he caught her hand. Be careful. It's surgery, not a war zone. It's always a war zone in there. You're just fighting different enemies. He pulled her in for a fierce kiss. Come back to me when you're done. Always. Evelyn ran into the ER and into controlled chaos. Blood everywhere, screaming, doctors shouting orders. She dove in immediately, assessing the worst cases, triaging who needed surgery first. 6 hours later, she'd performed 4 surgeries. 4 lives saved. A 19-year-old girl shot in the chest. A bouncer who'd taken 3 bullets protecting others. A mother of 2 caught in the crossfire. A teenager who'd been in the wrong place at the wrong time. But 3 others died on the table despite everything she tried. 3 families who would get devastating news. 3 lives cut short by senseless violence. Evelyn stood in the scrub room at dawn, washing blood from her hands, and thought about Victor's world. About how violence rippled outward, touching innocent people, destroying families, creating grief that echoed for years. She thought about Margaret Moretti, about Danny, about all the lives intersecting in ways both beautiful and terrible. Victor was waiting in the parking garage again, looking like he hadn't slept. He took one look at her face and pulled her into his arms. How many? 4 saved, 3 lost. That's a good ratio. It doesn't feel good. Evelyn's voice was muffled against his chest. It never feels good when people die. No, but you saved 4. 4 families who still have someone they love because of you. That matters, Evelyn. Even when it doesn't feel like enough, it matters. She let him hold her, let his strength support her weight, and realized something that should have terrified her but didn't. This was her life now, surgery and violence, saving lives while loving a man who took them, navigating a world where morality lived in shades of gray instead of black and white. Take me home, she whispered. Your apartment or mine? Ours. The word slipped out before she could stop it. I mean, ours, Victor repeated, and she heard the smile in his voice. I like that. They drove through Boston as the city woke up, 2 people bound together by grief and love and choices that couldn't be unmade. At Victor's brownstone, Their brownstone now, apparently. They stumbled inside and fell into bed fully clothed, too exhausted for anything but sleep. But before Evelyn drifted off, she felt Victor's arms around her and heard him whisper, "Thank you for choosing me, for choosing this. I know it's not easy." "Nothing worth having ever is," she murmured back. In the days that followed, Evelyn settled into her new reality. She moved her things into Victor's brownstone gradually, making space for herself among his books and furniture. The security detail became familiar faces, Marco and James, who followed her everywhere but learned to give her breathing room. She started having dinner with Victor's family regularly, learning the dynamics, earning their respect through steady competence and refusal to be intimidated. And slowly, impossibly, it started to feel like a life. Not the life she'd imagined for herself 5 years ago, but something real and solid, and theirs. 3 months after that first Sunday dinner, Evelyn received a message that would test everything they'd built. She was in surgery when it came, so she didn't see it until late afternoon. A simple text from an unknown number. "Dr. Moore, my name is Isabella. I'm 16 years old and I'm dying. Victor's family won't help me, but maybe you will. Please, I don't want to die." Evelyn stared at the message, her medical instincts warring with her knowledge of Victor's world. She called him immediately. "Do you know anyone named Isabella? 16 years old, claims she's dying and your family won't help?" Victor's silence was answer enough. Finally he said, "Where are you?" "The hospital, just finishing rounds." "Stay there. I'm coming to you." "And Evelyn, don't respond to that message, not yet." He arrived 30 minutes later, his expression grim. They found an empty conference room, and Victor paced like a caged animal. "Isabella Russo, daughter of Antonio Russo, the man whose captain threatened you, the man I've been at war with for 6 months. Victor's jaw clenched. "She has a heart condition, needs surgery. Her father came to me 2 weeks ago, begged me to use my connections to get her to the top of the transplant list. And you said no." "I said no, because Antonio Russo has spent the last year trying to destroy my family, trying to take our territory, trying to kill people I care about, including you." Victor stopped pacing, turned to face her. Helping his daughter would be seen as weakness. It would invite more attacks, more violence. "I can't do it." Evelyn felt her heart breaking. "She's 16 years old." "I know." "She's a child who had nothing to do with her father's choices." "I know. And you're going to let her die because of politics and pride." Victor's expression was anguished. "I'm trying to keep you alive, to keep my family safe. Every decision I make has consequences, Evelyn. If I help Isabella, her father will see it as an opening. He'll push harder, strike faster, and more people will die. Maybe you. Maybe Leo. Maybe one of the cousin's kids. Where's the morality in trading one innocent life for another?" "There isn't any. But that doesn't make letting her die right." Evelyn's voice cracked. "I became a surgeon to save lives. All lives. I won't turn my back on a 16-year-old girl because her father is your enemy. So what do you want to do?" "I want to examine her, review her case, see if there's anything I can do medically that doesn't involve your family politics." She met his eyes. "I'm asking your permission, Victor. But if you say no, I'm doing it anyway. This is where I draw the line." Victor looked at her for a long moment, something like pain and pride warring in his expression. "You're going to get yourself killed." "Maybe. But I'll be able to live with myself first." "And you think I can't?" "I think you're making an impossible choice in an impossible situation. But I don't have to make that choice. I'm a doctor, not a crime lord. My oath says save lives, not pick which lives matter." Evelyn's voice gentled. "Let me do this, Victor. Let me be who I am, even if it complicates things." He closed his eyes, and when he opened them, Evelyn saw resignation there. "Okay. Examine her, review her case. But you do it at my facility with my security present. And if this is a trap, if Antonio is using his daughter to get to you, then I will burn his entire organization to the ground. Understood?" "Understood." They arranged the meeting for the next evening at a private medical clinic Victor owned, one of the legitimate businesses his family used for less than legal medical emergencies. Isabella arrived with her father, a hard-looking man in his 50s, whose eyes held both desperation and calculation. "Dr. Moore, thank you for agreeing to see my daughter." Antonio's voice was careful, respectful. "I know the situation between our families is complicated. I'm here as a doctor, not as part of anyone's family." Evelyn turned to Isabella, saw a pale, frightened girl who looked younger than 16. "Hi, Isabella. I'm Dr. Moore. Can you tell me about your symptoms?" The examination revealed what Evelyn had suspected: advanced cardiomyopathy, heart functioning at less than 30% capacity. Isabella needed a transplant, or she'd be dead within 6 months. But the transplant list was long, and her condition wasn't critical enough to bump her to the top without intervention. "I can't get you a heart," Evelyn said honestly, aware of Antonio watching every word. "But I might be able to buy you more time. There's a procedure, a ventricular assist device. It would support your heart function while you wait for a transplant. It's not a cure, but it could extend your life significantly." "How significantly?" Antonio asked. "Months, maybe a year? Depends on her response and whether a donor heart becomes available." Evelyn looked at Isabella, saw tears in the girl's eyes. "It's major surgery. Risky. But it's a chance. When can you do it?" Isabella whispered. Evelyn glanced at Victor, who stood in the corner radiating tension. This was the moment. The choice that would define everything. "I need to get approval from the hospital ethics board. And Isabella, you need to understand, this surgery, if I perform it, I'm doing it because you deserve a chance at life. Not because of your father, not because of politics, because you're 16 years old and you should get to see 17. "I understand." Isabella's voice was small but firm. "Please, I don't want to die." Antonio Russo's face crumpled just for a moment, and Evelyn saw not a crime lord but a father terrified of losing his child. "Whatever you need, money, resources, anything, just save my daughter." "I don't want your money. I want your word that this doesn't become a weapon in your war with Victor." Evelyn's voice was steel. "My help comes with conditions. You don't use it as leverage, you don't see it as weakness, and you don't retaliate against my family for my choices. This is between me and Isabella, no one else." Antonio studied her, something like respect flickering in his eyes. "You have my word." Whether that word meant anything in his world, Evelyn didn't know. But she nodded, turned to Isabella, and said, "I'll submit the paperwork tomorrow. We'll schedule surgery as soon as possible." After they left, Victor exploded. "Do you have any idea what you just did? You showed mercy to my enemy's daughter. You gave Antonio leverage over us. I gave a 16-year-old girl a chance to live. And now he'll use that. He'll spin this as me going soft, as weakness he can exploit." "Then you deal with it." Evelyn's voice rose to match his. "You handle the politics and the violence and the war, but don't ask me to let children die to make your life easier. I won't do it, Victor. I can't." They stood facing each other, both breathing hard, the air between them crackling with tension. Then Victor's phone rang. He answered with a snarl, listened, and his expression went deadly cold. "When? How many? I'll be there in 20 minutes. He ended the call, his eyes meeting Evelyn's. "There's been an attack. 3 of my men shot outside a restaurant in the North End. One's critical." "Which hospital?" "Boston Memorial. They're taking him to surgery now." Victor was already moving toward the door. "I have to go." "I'm coming with you." "Evelyn, that's my hospital. Those are my colleagues operating. I'm coming." She grabbed her coat. "We'll fight about Isabella later. Right now, someone needs saving." They drove in tense silence, both processing what had just happened and what it meant. At the hospital, they learned the critical patient was Marco, one of Evelyn's security detail, a man she'd come to know and even like. "How bad?" Victor demanded of the attending. "Bad. 3 gunshot wounds, chest, abdomen, and leg. Lost a lot of blood. Dr. Chen is operating now." Victor's face was a mask, but Evelyn saw his hands trembling. She took one of those hands in hers, squeezed it. "Sarah's the best. If anyone can save him, she can." They waited. Hours passed. Victor's family began arriving, Leo, the cousins, the lieutenants, the waiting room filled with dangerous men barely containing their fury. Evelyn sat among them, Victor's hand in hers, and understood viscerally that this was what loving him meant: violence and death and grief, always lurking at the edges of their happiness. Finally, Sarah emerged from the OR, still in her scrubs, exhaustion carved into her face. She spotted Evelyn immediately. He made it. It was touch and go, but he's stable. If he survives the next 48 hours, he'll probably recover fully. The relief in the room was palpable. Victor's shoulders dropped, and Evelyn felt him squeeze her hand so hard it hurt. "Thank you," he said to Sarah. "Truly." Sarah looked between them, understanding dawning. "You're welcome. Though, Evelyn, we need to talk, soon." After Victor left with his men to discuss retaliation and security, Sarah pulled Evelyn into an empty office. "What are you doing, Evelyn? Getting involved with organized crime, treating their enemies, sitting in our waiting room like some mob wife? This isn't you." "Isn't it? I fell in love with someone complicated. I'm trying to navigate that while staying true to who I am. That's all any of us can do." "But at what cost? You're risking your career, your safety, your life." Sarah's voice softened. "I care about you. I don't want to see you destroyed." "I'm not being destroyed. I'm choosing to live instead of just existing." Evelyn met her friend's eyes. "For 2 years I was drowning. Victor pulled me out. Yes, his world is dangerous and violent and morally complex, but he's also kind and protective, and he makes me feel like I matter for more than just my surgical skills. Is that really so terrible?" "It is if it gets you killed." "Then I guess we'll see." Evelyn stood. "I need to get back." "But Sarah, thank you. For saving Marco, for caring, for being my friend even when you don't understand my choices." "Always." Sarah hugged her tightly. "Just please, be careful. Both professionally and personally. This path you're on, it doesn't usually end well." Evelyn knew she was right, but she also knew it was too late to turn back. She'd made her choice, crossed her line, committed herself to this impossible life with this impossible man. Now she just had to survive it. And somehow find a way to save lives in the middle of a war zone without losing herself completely. The real test was just beginning. Isabella's surgery was scheduled for a Thursday morning, 2 weeks after Marco's shooting. In those 14 days, the tension between the Moretti and Russo families had escalated to a breaking point. 3 more attacks, 2 deaths, and a fire at one of Victor's legitimate businesses. The city was holding its breath, waiting for the inevitable explosion. Victor hadn't slept in days. Evelyn watched him pace their bedroom at 3 in the morning, his phone constantly ringing with updates and threats and strategic discussions. She wanted to comfort him, but didn't know how. The gulf between their worlds had never felt wider. "You don't have to do the surgery," he said finally, stopping at the window. Isabella's father broke his word. "He's escalated every attack. You owe him nothing." "I don't owe him. I owe her." Evelyn sat up in bed. "She's not responsible for what her father does, and I made a promise." "Promises can be broken when the other party violates the terms." "Not by me. I told Isabella I'd give her a chance. I meant it." She moved to stand beside him, looking out at Boston's nighttime skyline. "I know you think I'm naive, that I don't understand the consequences. But Victor, if I let my medical decisions be dictated by your wars, then I'm just another weapon in your arsenal. I can't live like that. Even if it gets you killed? Even then, because some things are worth dying for, like keeping your word, like saving a child's life." She turned to face him. "You taught me that grief doesn't require a villain, that sometimes tragedy just happens. Isabella having a terrible father doesn't make her less deserving of help." Victor's expression was anguished. "You're going to break me, you know that? I've spent 15 years hardening myself, making impossible choices, sacrificing anything soft or gentle to survive. And then you walk into my life and demand I feel things again, care about things beyond strategy and survival. Is that so terrible?" "It is when caring makes you vulnerable, when loving someone gives your enemies a target." His hands cupped her face. "I love you so much it terrifies me. And the thought of losing you, of making the wrong call and watching you die because of my choices, that's a weight I don't know if I can carry." "Then don't carry it alone. Let me help." Evelyn's voice was gentle. I'm not asking you to stop being who you are. Just let me be who I am too. A surgeon who saves lives, even complicated ones. What if this is a trap? What if Antonio is using Isabella to get you alone, vulnerable? Then I trust you to keep me safe. That's what all this security is for, right? She managed a small smile. I'll do the surgery at Boston Memorial in a controlled environment with your people everywhere. If it's a trap, we'll be ready. Victor studied her for a long moment, then pulled her close. You're either the bravest person I've ever met or the most reckless. Can I be both? Apparently. He kissed her forehead. Okay, do the surgery, save the girl, but we do it my way. Full security, controlled access, and I'm in that hospital the entire time. Non-negotiable. Deal. The morning of Isabella's surgery, Boston Memorial looked like an armed camp. Victor's security had coordinated with hospital security, creating layers of protection that made the staff nervous and the patients ask questions. Evelyn ignored the stares and whispers, focusing entirely on the task ahead. Isabella arrived with her father and a woman Evelyn assumed was her mother, a tired-looking woman with Isabella's eyes. Antonio's expression was carefully neutral, but Evelyn could see the fear beneath the mask. Dr. Moore, thank you for this, truly. His voice was quiet, almost humble. I'm doing this for Isabella, not for you, but you're welcome. Evelyn turned to the girl. Ready? Isabella nodded, trying to be brave. Will it hurt? You'll be asleep. You won't feel anything during the surgery. Yes, there'll be pain, but we'll manage it. And if everything goes well, you'll wake up with a device that helps your heart work better while you wait for a transplant. Evelyn took her hand. I'm going to do everything I can to give you more time, okay? Okay. Tears streamed down Isabella's face. I'm scared. That's normal. Surgery is scary. But you're strong, and I'm very good at what I do. Evelyn squeezed her hand. See you on the other side. As the anesthesia team wheeled Isabella to pre-op, Antonio caught Evelyn's arm. Whatever happens between our families, know that I'll remember this. That you helped my daughter when you didn't have to. That matters. Then maybe it's time to stop the violence, to find another way to resolve your differences with Victor that doesn't involve innocent people dying. Evelyn pulled her arm free. Your daughter deserves to wake up to a world where her father isn't at war. Think about that. She left him there and went to scrub in, pushing everything else from her mind. In the OR, there was only the surgery, the patient, the intricate dance of saving a life. This was her domain, where she was most herself, most capable. The procedure took 6 hours. Installing the ventricular assist device was complex, requiring precise placement and careful connection to Isabella's failing heart. Evelyn worked with absolute focus, her hands steady, her mind clear. Around her, the surgical team moved in practice synchronization, everyone committed to giving this 16-year-old girl more time. Suction, I need better visualization here. Device is ready for placement. Good, let's get this positioned correctly. Her heart's more damaged than the scans showed. We need to be perfect here. Hours blurred together. Evelyn existed in that space of pure concentration where nothing else mattered. Not Victor, not the war between families, not the armed guards outside the OR. Just the surgery, just the life under her hands. Finally, after what felt like both minutes and years, the device was in place. Evelyn stepped back, watching the monitors as Isabella's heart, supported now by the mechanical assistants, began to pump more effectively. The numbers improved slowly but steadily. She's stable. Let's close her up. 30 minutes later, Evelyn stripped off her gloves and walked out of the OR to find Victor, Antonio, and what looked like half of both families filling the surgical waiting room. The tension was thick enough to cut. She addressed them all, too tired to care about politics or territory or ancient grudges. The surgery went well. Isabella's in recovery. The device is functioning properly. If she responds well over the next few days, she should be able to go home in about a week. Antonio's face crumpled. His wife burst into tears. And for a moment, everyone in that waiting room was just people, parents who loved their child, relieved that she'd been given more time. Thank you, Antonio said, his voice thick with emotion. Dr. Moore, you have my eternal gratitude. I don't want your gratitude. I want you to remember that your daughter almost died because the stress of your lifestyle weakened her heart. I want you to think about whether whatever territory you're fighting over is worth her growing up without a father. Evelyn's voice was firm. And I want you to know that if you use this, my help, my mercy, as ammunition against Victor, I will never forgive myself for saving your daughter. Antonio met her eyes, and something passed between them. Understanding, perhaps. Respect. You have my word. This doesn't change the business between our families, but it also won't be used against them. You helped my daughter. That's separate from everything else. Whether he'd keep that word, Evelyn didn't know. But she nodded and turned to Victor, who stood rigid with tension, his men flanking him like soldiers awaiting orders. Can we go home now? I'm exhausted. Victor's expression softened infinitesimally. Yes, let's go home. They walked out of the hospital together, security surrounding them, and Evelyn felt the weight of what she'd just done settling on her shoulders. She'd saved Isabella's life, yes, but she'd also crossed a line, involved herself in family politics in a way that couldn't be taken back. In the car, Victor finally spoke. That was either the bravest or stupidest thing you've ever done. You keep saying that. Because you keep doing brave, stupid things. His hand found hers. But I'm proud of you. You stayed true to yourself, to your oath, even when it was dangerous, even when it complicated everything. Did I make things worse between you and Antonio? Maybe, maybe not. Hard to say. Victor was quiet for a moment. But you did something I couldn't do. You showed mercy. You put a child's life above politics and pride. And maybe, just maybe, that'll plant a seed. Make Antonio think twice before escalating further. Or it'll make him see you as weak. If he does, I'll disabuse him of that notion quickly enough. Victor's voice went cold. But his daughter's alive because of you. That's not nothing. Even in my world, that means something. They drove in silence for a while, both processing the day. Then Evelyn's phone rang. Sarah. Evelyn, we have a problem. Isabella's crashing, blood pressure dropping, heart rhythm unstable. We need you back here now. Evelyn's heart stopped. I'm 5 minutes away. Get her to the OR. I'm coming. Victor didn't ask questions, just turned the car around and sped back to the hospital. Evelyn ran through the corridors, still in her scrubs from earlier, her mind racing through complications and solutions. Isabella was seizing on the gurney, her monitors screaming alarms. Evelyn assessed the situation in seconds. Device malfunction. We need to get her back to the OR immediately. Call the surgical team. Move. The next 4 hours were a nightmare. The ventricular assist device had developed a clot, causing a cascade of complications. Evelyn worked frantically to save Isabella's life, adjusting the device, clearing the clot, fighting to stabilize the failing heart. We're losing her. No, we're not. Stay with me, Isabella. Stay with me. Evelyn's hands moved with desperate precision. I've got a pulse. Weak, but there. Let's get this bleeding under control. It was close. Too close. At one point, Evelyn thought she'd lost her. The monitors flatlined. Isabella's heart stopped. But Evelyn refused to give up, performing cardiac massage, shocking the heart back into rhythm, willing this 16-year-old girl to fight. Finally, after what felt like hours, Isabella stabilized. The device was working properly again, the heart responding to treatment. Evelyn closed her up with shaking hands, exhausted beyond measure, but triumphant. She walked out of the OR at 2 a.m. to find both families still there, the waiting room a powder keg of tension and fear. Antonio looked like he'd aged 10 years. She made it. It was close, but she's stable now. The next 72 hours are critical, but if she survives that, she should recover fully. Antonio crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled Evelyn into an embrace that made Victor's security tense. You saved her twice in one day. I owe you a debt that can never be repaid. You don't owe me anything. Just take care of your daughter when she wakes up. Be the father she needs. Evelyn pulled back, looking him in the eye. And maybe think about whether this life, your life, is really what you want for her future. Before Antonio could respond, gunfire erupted outside the hospital. Everyone in the waiting room dropped to the floor, Victor's men pulling weapons, chaos erupting. Victor had Evelyn on the ground, his body covering hers before she could even process what was happening. Stay down! More gunfire, screaming. Then Victor was shouting orders in Italian, his men moving with military precision. The shooting lasted maybe 30 seconds, but felt like an eternity. When silence fell, Victor helped Evelyn to her feet. Are you hurt? No, I'm fine. Her hands were shaking. What just happened? Someone just sent a message. Victor's expression was murderous. Stay here with my men. I'm going to find out who. He left with half his security detail, leaving Evelyn with Antonio and their respective families in a hospital waiting room that smelled of fear and gunpowder. No one spoke. They'd all crossed some invisible line, and there was no going back. 20 minutes later, Victor returned, blood on his hands, his expression cold. It was a third party, not Russo, not us. Someone trying to start a war by hitting us both while we were vulnerable. Oh, who? Antonio demanded. The Calabrese family out of Providence. They've been looking to expand into Boston for months. Figured if they could get us fighting each other, we'd be too weakened to stop them. Victor's voice was ice. They were wrong. Antonio stood, his expression matching Victor's in coldness. My daughter almost died because of their opportunism. That's not acceptable. No, it's not. Victor looked at him directly. Truce, temporary, until we've dealt with this threat. Then we can go back to our war if you still want one. Antonio considered this, then nodded once. Truce. But Victor, after this is done, we need to talk. Really talk. About territory, about business, about finding a way forward that doesn't involve our children paying for our pride. Agreed. Evelyn watched this exchange, understanding that something fundamental had just shifted. Two men who'd been enemies hours ago, united by a common threat, and the realization that their violence had nearly killed a 16-year-old girl. The hospital went into lockdown. Police swarmed the area. Evelyn gave her statement, checked on Isabella, who'd somehow slept through the chaos, and finally, as dawn broke for the second time in 24 hours, went home with Victor. They stumbled into the brownstone exhausted, traumatized, but alive. Victor poured them both whiskey, and they sat on the couch in silence, processing everything that had happened. I'm sorry, he said finally. I never wanted you to experience that. The violence, the danger. You could have been killed tonight. But I wasn't. Your men protected me. You protected me. Evelyn leaned against him. I'm not going to lie and say it wasn't terrifying. It was. But Victor, this is your world. If I want to be with you, I have to accept all of it, not just the parts that are safe or comfortable. You shouldn't have to accept this. You're a surgeon, a healer. You save lives, and I destroy them. How can we possibly build something lasting on that foundation? Because we balance each other. You remind me that the world is complicated, that morality isn't always clear. And maybe I remind you that there's still good worth fighting for, worth protecting. She turned to look at him. What happened tonight? Saving Isabella, the shooting, the truce? That's all proof that change is possible. That even in your world, people can choose differently. You really believe that? I have to, otherwise what's the point? Evelyn's voice was soft but firm. You can't spend your whole life drowning in guilt and violence, Victor. At some point you have to decide if you want to keep being what you were born to be, or if you want to become something else, something better. And if I can't, if this is all I am, then I'll love you anyway. But I'll keep pushing you to be more, to see that you're capable of change. She kissed him gently. Because I've seen it. I've seen you show mercy, protect the innocent, make the hard choice to put aside your pride for a greater good. That's not the action of a monster. That's the action of a man who could be extraordinary if he just believed in himself. Victor held her close, and Evelyn felt him trembling. I don't deserve you. Probably not, but you've got me anyway. She smiled against his chest. Now can we please sleep? I've performed 2 emergency surgeries and survived a shootout in the last 24 hours. I'm exhausted. They went to bed as the sun rose, 2 people trying to build a life in the space between violence and healing, guilt and redemption. And as Evelyn drifted off in Victor's arms, she thought about Isabella, fighting for her life in a hospital bed, her heart supported by machines and her future uncertain, but alive, still alive. And that had to count for something. The days that followed were strange. The The truce between the Moretti and Russo families held, both sides united against the Calabrese threat. Evelyn watched from the sidelines as Victor coordinated strategy, eliminated targets, and systematically dismantled the Providence family's attempts to gain a foothold in Boston. She didn't ask for details. Some things were better left unknown. Isabella recovered slowly but steadily. Evelyn visited her every day, monitoring her progress, adjusting medications, and gradually seeing the color return to the girl's cheeks. On the 5th day post-surgery, Isabella was well enough to talk. "Why did you help me?" she asked as Evelyn checked her vitals. "You knew what my father is, what our families are to each other. Why risk it?" "Because you're 16 years old and you deserve a chance at life." "That's not complicated, Isabella. That's just human decency." Evelyn smiled at her. "How are you feeling today?" "Better. Tired, but better." Isabella paused. "My father says you're dating Victor Moretti. That must be weird." "It's complicated, but yes, I love him. Does that bother you?" "No, it's just, you seem so normal, like a regular doctor. And he's, well, you know what he is." Isabella's young face was thoughtful. "Do you think people like my father and Victor can ever really change? Or are they just what they are forever?" "I think people can always change if they want to badly enough. The question is whether they want to." Evelyn sat down beside the bed. "Your father almost lost you. That changes a person, makes them reassess priorities. Maybe he'll use this as an opportunity to build something different. Or maybe he won't, but the possibility exists. I hope he does. I'm tired of being scared all the time, of wondering if someone will hurt me to hurt him, of knowing that the life I want, college, career, normal things, might never happen because of who my father is." Tears welled in Isabella's eyes. "I don't want this life, Dr. Moore. I never did." Evelyn's heart broke for her. "Then when you're recovered, when you're strong enough, you make different choices. You go to college far away, you build the life you want, and you don't let your father's legacy define you." "Is that what you did? Made different choices?" "In a way. I chose to love someone complicated despite all the reasons not to. I chose to save your life even though it put me at risk. I choose every day to be a surgeon, to save lives, to make a difference." Evelyn took Isabella's hand. "You get to choose too, Isabella. Maybe not right now, while you're still dependent on your family, but someday. And when that day comes, choose the life that makes you happy. Choose to be more than what you were born into." Isabella squeezed her hand. "Thank you for saving me, for seeing me as more than just my father's daughter. Always." When Evelyn left Isabella's room, she found Antonio waiting in the corridor. He looked different, older, more uncertain than the dangerous crime lord she'd first met. "Dr. Moore, a moment of your time?" They walked to a quiet corner, away from security and family. Antonio struggled to find words. "My daughter, she's everything to me. Her mother and I, we've tried to keep her separate from the business, to give her a normal life. But it's impossible. She knows too much, sees too much. And now she's lying in a hospital bed with a machine keeping her heart beating, because the stress of my life literally broke her." His voice cracked. "I did this to her. Just like Victor's choices killed his mother, we're destroying the people we love most. So stop. Find another way." Evelyn's voice was gentle but firm. "You and Victor, you're both smart, capable men. Surely you can find a solution that doesn't involve violence and vendetta, for your children's sake, if nothing else." "It's not that simple." "It never is, but that doesn't mean it's impossible." She paused. "Isabella told me she doesn't want this life, that she dreams of college and normalcy and a future that isn't defined by fear. Are you really going to deny her that because you're too proud to change?" Antonio was quiet for a long time. Victor's mother, Margaret, she was a good woman, tried to steer him toward legitimate business, toward something clean, but the family legacy was too strong. He couldn't escape it. Maybe not then, but maybe now he can. Maybe you both can. Evelyn met his eyes. "The truce is working. You and Victor are accomplishing more together than you ever did fighting. Why not make it permanent? Why not build something new instead of perpetuating the old patterns? You're asking us to fundamentally change who we are. No. I'm asking you to fundamentally change what you do, who you are, fathers, leaders, men who love their families. That doesn't have to change, but how you express that, how you provide for those families, that can evolve. Evelyn's voice softened. Your daughter almost died. Victor's mother did die. How many more people you love have to pay the price before you decide enough is enough? Before Antonio could answer, Victor appeared, his expression tight. Evelyn, we need to go. There's been a development. She followed him out of the hospital, into the car, and waited until they were moving before asking, What kind of development? The Calabrese family is making a move. They've got reinforcements coming from Providence. Antonio and I need to coordinate a response. Victor's hands were white-knuckled on the steering wheel. This is it. The moment where we either crush this threat permanently or they establish a foothold in Boston and we're at war for years. How many people are going to die? Hopefully just theirs. But Evelyn, there's a chance this goes badly, a chance I don't come back. He pulled over suddenly, turning to face her. If something happens to me, if tonight goes wrong, I need you to know that you saved me. Not just from loneliness or guilt, but from becoming a monster completely. You made me remember that there's good in the world worth protecting. Victor, don't talk like that. I have to, because I'm walking into a war tonight, and I need you to understand what you mean to me. He cupped her face in his hands. I love you. I've loved you from that rainy night in the cemetery when you knelt before my mother's grave and showed me that guilt could be faced instead of buried. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me. Tears streamed down Evelyn's face. Then don't go. Let someone else handle this, please. I can't. This is my responsibility, my family. I have to protect them. He kissed her, deep and desperate. But I promise I'll do everything I can to come back to you. Wait for me. Always. He drove her back to the brownstone, where his security would keep her safe, and then he left. Evelyn watched from the window as his car disappeared into Boston's evening traffic, carrying the man she loved toward violence and potential death. She tried to distract herself, reviewed medical journals, caught up on paperwork, called Sarah to check on Isabella. But all she could think about was Victor out there somewhere, fighting a war she couldn't see, risking everything to protect a legacy that had already cost so much. Midnight passed. Then 1 a.m. 2. Her phone stayed silent, and Evelyn's anxiety grew with each passing minute. She paced the brownstone, imagined every terrible possibility, and prayed to forces she wasn't sure she believed in that Victor would come home safe. At 3:15 in the morning, she heard the door open. Evelyn ran to the entrance and stopped dead. Victor stood there covered in blood, his suit torn, his face bruised, but alive. Gloriously, impossibly alive. It's over, he said, his voice hoarse. The Calabrese family is finished. They won't be coming back. Evelyn crossed the distance between them and pulled him into her arms, not caring about the blood, just needing to feel him solid and real and breathing. You're hurt. Superficial. Looks worse than it is. He held her tight. But Evelyn, I need to tell you something. Tonight, when I was facing down their leadership, all I could think about was you, about coming home to you, and I realized something. What? I don't want to live like this anymore. I don't want to spend my life fighting wars and making enemies and wondering if each day will be my last. I want... His voice broke. I want to build something with you, something clean and good and lasting. I want to find a way out of this life. Is that possible? I don't know, but I'm going to try. For you, for us, for the future we could have if I'm brave enough to reach for it. Victor pulled back to look at her. Tonight, Antonio and I talked, really talked, maybe for the first time ever. And we agreed, there has to be a better way. We're going to work together to transition the families toward legitimate business. It'll take years, and it'll be dangerous, but it's possible. We could actually do this. Evelyn felt hope blooming in her chest, fragile but real. You mean it? You're really going to try to go legitimate? I mean it. No more wars, no more unnecessary violence, just business, clean business, and a life that doesn't require my girlfriend to perform emergency surgery on enemy children while dodging bullets. He managed a tired smile. Think you could love a reformed criminal trying to go straight? I already love you exactly as you are. But yes, I could definitely love the version of you that doesn't come home covered in blood at 3 in the morning. She kissed him gently. Now let's get you cleaned up and into bed. You look like you've been through hell. I have. But I came back. And I'm going to keep coming back, Evelyn. Every day for as long as you'll have me. They stumbled upstairs together, and Evelyn tended his wounds with professional efficiency, cataloging each cut and bruise while Victor told her about the battle, about the truce that had become an alliance, about the tentative plans he and Antonio had made for the future. As she bandaged his knuckles, Evelyn realized that this was what love looked like in their world. Not perfect or safe or easy, but real. Two damaged people choosing each other, fighting for a future neither had thought possible, and refusing to let guilt or violence or impossible circumstances destroy what they'd built. It wouldn't be simple. The path from crime lord to legitimate businessman was fraught with danger and complication. But for the first time since Margaret Moretti had died on her operating table, Evelyn felt like the future held something other than guilt and grief. It held possibility. It held hope. And most importantly, it held Victor, battered and bloodied but alive, choosing change, choosing her, choosing a different kind of life. That was enough. For now, it was more than enough. The rest they'd figure out together, one impossible day at a time. The transition wasn't easy. Victor had promised to go legitimate, but dismantling decades of criminal enterprise while keeping his family safe proved more complicated than either of them had anticipated. The next 6 months were a careful dance of negotiations, buyouts, and strategic retreats from illegal operations. Some of Victor's associates resisted the change. 2 of his cousins left the family entirely, unwilling to abandon the old ways. And every step forward felt like walking through a minefield, never knowing which decision might trigger violence. But Victor kept his word. Slowly, methodically, he began transforming the Moretti empire. The drug operations were sold off to families in other cities. The protection rackets were disbanded. Money laundering networks were replaced with legitimate investment portfolios. It was painful, expensive, and dangerous work, but Victor approached it with the same ruthless efficiency he'd once applied to criminal enterprise. Antonio Russo followed a similar path. The 2 former enemies working together to reshape Boston's underworld into something resembling normalcy. Their alliance shocked everyone, but it held. Isabella's near-death experience had fundamentally changed Antonio, just as Margaret's death and Evelyn's love had changed Victor. Evelyn watched this transformation from the sidelines while maintaining her own grueling schedule at Boston Memorial. She'd been promoted to Chief of Cardiothoracic Surgery, a position that came with more responsibility and longer hours. But she loved it, loved the challenge, loved saving lives, loved feeling like she was making a real difference. Isabella recovered fully and was accepted to Stanford, 3,000 miles from Boston and her father's legacy. The day she left, she hugged Evelyn tightly and whispered, "Thank you for showing me that change is possible, that we don't have to be what we're born into." "Go build something beautiful," Evelyn told her, "and don't look back." Sarah remained skeptical of Evelyn's relationship with Victor, but she'd stopped openly criticizing it after seeing how happy Evelyn had become. The haunted look that had lived in Evelyn's eyes for 2 years after Margaret's death was finally gone, replaced by something that looked like peace. "You're different," Sarah observed one afternoon as they reviewed surgical schedules. "Lighter, like you've finally forgiven yourself." "I'm getting there. It's a process." Evelyn smiled. "But yes, I'm better. Victor helped me see that carrying guilt forever doesn't honor the dead. Living well does. He's good for you. I still don't fully understand it, and I probably never will. But I see what you have together, and it's real." Sarah paused. "Just promise me you'll be careful. Even if he's going legitimate, there are still people who see him as what he was. That danger doesn't disappear overnight." "I know, but I'd rather live with that risk than live without him." The real test came on a cold March evening, 8 months after the Calabrese War. Evelyn was leaving the hospital after a successful triple bypass surgery when she noticed a car following her again. Her security detail, now reduced to just 1 man since things had been quiet, noticed it too. "Dr. Moore, we have a tail. I'm calling Mr. Moretti." But before he could make the call, 3 cars boxed them in. Men with guns surrounded them, and Evelyn's heart hammered as she recognized the insignia on their jackets. Not Calabrese, not any family she knew. Something new. The lead man approached her window, tapped on the glass with the barrel of his gun. "Dr. Moore, we need you to come with us. There's someone who requires your medical expertise." "I'm not going anywhere with you. If someone needs medical help, take them to a hospital." "This person can't go to a hospital. Too many questions." The man's smile was cold. "And you're going to help them whether you want to or not. Your cooperation determines whether your security guard lives or dies." Evelyn looked at Marco, the same Marco who'd been shot months ago, who'd recovered and returned to protect her. His hand was on his weapon, but he was outnumbered 6-1. If he drew, he'd die. "Stand down, Marco," she said quietly. "I'll go with them." "Dr. Moore, Mr. Moretti will kill me if I let you. He'll kill you if you die trying to protect me. Stand down. That's an order." She turned to the gunman. "I'll come, but if you hurt him, I won't lift a finger to help whoever's dying. Understood?" The man considered this, then nodded. "Fair enough. Let's go." They drove for 20 minutes to a warehouse in South Boston. Evelyn was led inside to find a makeshift operating room set up in the corner. Surgical lights, a table, basic equipment. And on that table, bleeding heavily from a gunshot wound to the abdomen, was a young man who couldn't have been more than 20. "Who is he?" Evelyn demanded. "My nephew," said a voice from the shadows. A man stepped forward, older, scarred, with eyes that had seen too much violence. "He was shot in a territorial dispute. He'll die without surgery, and I can't take him to a hospital without police involvement. So you kidnapped me instead. I'm asking for your help. You saved Isabella Russo. You could save my nephew, too." The man's voice was hard but desperate. "Name your price. Money, protection, anything. Just save him." Evelyn looked at the young man on the table, saw the blood pooling beneath him, saw his pale face and labored breathing. Every medical instinct screamed at her to help, but she also understood what this meant, that even as Victor tried to leave the criminal world behind, that world would keep reaching for them. "I need to call my boyfriend," she said. "Victor Moretti. He needs to know where I am." The man's expression darkened. "Moretti is trying to go soft, to abandon the old ways. That's why we didn't go through him. We need someone who understands that sometimes the old ways are necessary." "And you think forcing me at gunpoint to perform surgery is going to work out well for you?" Evelyn's voice was cold. "Victor will burn your entire organization to the ground when he finds out about this. Let him try. We're not afraid of Moretti anymore. He's lost his edge, his willingness to do what needs to be done." The man gestured to his nephew. "Now, are you going to help, or do we need to find ways to motivate you?" Evelyn understood the threat, understood that these men would hurt people she loved if she refused, and she understood that the young man on the table would die without intervention. "I'll help. But on one condition. After I save him, you let me go. No revenge against Victor for what I'm about to do. No using this as leverage. This is a one-time deal, and then you forget I exist." "Agreed." Evelyn scrubbed her hands at a makeshift sink, assessed the limited supplies, and approached the table. The young man's eyes were glazed with pain, his breathing shallow. The bullet had entered his lower abdomen, likely perforating his intestine and causing internal bleeding. "This is going to be rough. I don't have proper equipment, no anesthesiologist, limited tools. But I'll do what I can." She looked at the men surrounding her. "I need someone to assist, someone with steady hands who can follow orders without panicking." One of the younger men stepped forward. "I'll do it." For the next 3 hours, Evelyn operated under the worst conditions she'd experienced since her residency. The lighting was barely adequate, the instruments crude, and the lack of proper monitoring equipment meant she had to rely on observation and instinct. But her hands were steady, her mind clear, and she worked with the focused intensity that had made her one of Boston's best surgeons. She found the bullet, removed it, repaired the damaged intestine, and stopped the internal bleeding. The young man's color improved slowly, his breathing became less labored, and finally, Evelyn stepped back from the table. "He's stable. He needs antibiotics, proper monitoring, and follow-up care. Ideally in a hospital, but I'm guessing that's not happening. She stripped off her bloody gloves. Keep the wound clean, watch for signs of infection. If he develops a fever over 101 or shows any signs of sepsis, he needs immediate hospital care regardless of the police risk. Understood? The older man stared at her with something like awe. You saved him. Under these conditions, with no proper equipment, you actually saved him. It's what I do. Now keep your end of the bargain. Let me go. But before they could respond, the warehouse doors exploded inward. Victor stormed in with 20 armed men, his face a mask of cold fury. He took in the scene, Evelyn covered in blood, the makeshift operating room, the men who'd taken her, and his expression went absolutely murderous. You took her, he said, his voice deadly quiet. You put your hands on what's mine and dragged her here at gunpoint. We needed a surgeon. There are dozens of surgeons in this city who would have helped for the right price. But you took her, you threatened her, you made the catastrophic mistake of thinking I'd gone so soft that you could touch her without consequences. Victor's gun came up, pointing directly at the older man's head. Give me one reason I shouldn't kill you right now. Victor, wait. Evelyn stepped forward, putting herself between them. I'm okay. They didn't hurt me. I helped their nephew because he would have died otherwise, not because of their threats. Please, don't do this. They kidnapped you, Evelyn. That's not something I can let stand. And killing them won't change what happened. It'll just create more violence, more revenge, more blood. She took his face in her hands, not caring that her hands were still bloody. You promised me you were done with this, that you were choosing a different path. Don't let anger destroy all the progress you've made. Victor's eyes burned into hers, rage and love and fear warring in their depths. They could have killed you. But they didn't. I'm here. I'm safe. And that young man on the table gets to live. Her voice softened. Please, Victor, for me. Let it go. The tension in the warehouse was suffocating. Victor's men were ready to fire on his command. The kidnappers were trapped, knowing they'd made a fatal miscalculation. And Evelyn stood in the middle, the only thing preventing a massacre. Finally, Victor lowered his gun. You have 24 hours to leave Boston. Take your nephew, take your family, and go. If I ever see any of you again, if I even hear your names in connection with this city, I will finish what I chose not to start tonight. Understand? The older man nodded, smart enough not to argue. Understood. And Mr. Moretti, thank you for showing mercy. Don't thank me. Thank her. She's the only reason you're breathing. Victor turned to Evelyn. Let's go home. They left the warehouse, Victor's hand never leaving the small of her back. In the car, as they drove through Boston's nighttime streets, Evelyn finally let herself shake. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving her exhausted and emotionally raw. I was terrified, she whispered. When they surrounded us, when they pointed guns at Marco, I thought this was it, that your past had finally caught up with us in the worst way. I'm sorry. This is my fault. If I'd been faster in transitioning out, if I'd been more thorough in communicating the change to the smaller families, stop. This isn't your fault. You can't control every criminal in Boston. She leaned against him. But Victor, this is going to keep happening. Even as you go legitimate, there will always be people who remember what you were, who see you as a resource or a threat. We need to find a way to really separate ourselves from this world. I know. I've been thinking about it. Victor was quiet for a moment. What if we left? Not just the business, but Boston entirely. Started over somewhere new. Evelyn sat up, startled. Leave Boston? But this is your home. Your family is here. My family is transitioning to legitimate business with or without me. Leo can handle operations. The cousins who stayed are committed to the change. And Evelyn, he looked at her intently. You're my family now. You're what matters most. If staying in Boston means constantly looking over our shoulders, waiting for the next threat, then maybe it's time to build something new somewhere else. Where would we go? Anywhere. You could get a position at any hospital in the country. I could invest in legitimate businesses, build something clean from the ground up. We could have the life we've been trying to create here, but without the ghosts of my past haunting us. Victor's voice was full of hope and fear. What do you think? Evelyn thought about Boston, the city where she'd trained, where she'd failed Margaret and found Victor, where she'd spent 2 years drowning in guilt before learning to live again. She thought about Sarah and her colleagues, about the patients who trusted her, about the cemetery where this had all begun. But she also thought about the future, about building a life with Victor that wasn't constantly shadowed by violence, about the possibility of peace, of safety, of normal concerns like careers and homes, and maybe, someday, children. "I think," she said slowly, "that maybe it's time to let go of the past, to stop visiting graves and atoning for failures and carrying guilt like armor, to just live. Is that a yes?" "It's a maybe. Let me think about it." She smiled at him. "But Victor, wherever we go, whatever we do, I want to do it together. You're right, you're my family now. Everything else is just details." He pulled her close and kissed her, and Evelyn felt the last pieces of her old self, the broken surgeon who'd knelt in cemetery mud apologizing to ghosts, finally fall away. She was someone new now, someone who'd learned that love was worth the risk, that healing took many forms, and that sometimes the bravest thing you could do was choose to move forward instead of remaining trapped in the past. 2 weeks later, Evelyn stood in Cedar Grove Cemetery for what she promised herself would be the last time. The spring morning was beautiful, warm sun, singing birds, flowers blooming around the headstones. She knelt before Margaret Moretti's grave, but this time she wasn't apologizing. "I wanted to tell you that I'm leaving Boston," she said quietly. "Victor and I are moving to Seattle. I accepted a position at the university hospital there, and he's investing in a medical technology startup. We're starting over, building something new together." She traced the carved letters of Margaret's name. "I'm sorry I couldn't save you. I'll always carry that with me, always wonder if there was something I missed, but I'm learning to live with it instead of being destroyed by it. Your son helped me see that. He helped me understand that grief doesn't require a villain, and that sometimes the best way to honor the dead is to live fully." Evelyn paused, gathering her thoughts. "I love him, Margaret. I love your son with everything I am. And I know you'd probably have mixed feelings about that, given how we met. But he's a good man trying to become better. He's leaving the criminal world behind, trying to build something clean and honest. And I hope, you'd be proud of him for that." She stood, brushing dirt from her knees. "Thank you. For dying in a way that brought us together, as strange as that sounds. For creating a son who understands loss and guilt and the weight of choices. For being the connection that led me to the love of my life." Evelyn placed a single white rose on the grave, then turned and walked away. Victor waited by the cemetery gates, and when he saw her approaching, his expression softened. "How do you feel?" "Free," she said, and meant it. "Ready to start the next chapter." "Good, because I have something for you." Victor pulled a small box from his pocket, and Evelyn's breath caught. "Victor, I was going to wait. Do this properly, with dinner and romance and everything you deserve. But standing here, at the place where we first met, it feels right." He opened the box to reveal a simple but beautiful diamond ring. "Evelyn Moore, you saved my life in every way that matters. You taught me that change is possible, that love is worth the risk, and that the future doesn't have to be defined by the past. Will you marry me?" Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. "Yes. Yes, of course, yes." Victor slipped the ring onto her finger, then pulled her into a kiss that tasted like hope and new beginnings. When they finally broke apart, both were crying and laughing at the same time. "We're really doing this," Evelyn said. "Leaving everything behind, starting over." "Are you scared?" "Terrified, but also excited. For the first time in years, I'm excited about the future instead of haunted by the past." She looked at the ring on her finger, then back at Victor. "Let's go home. We have a lot to plan." They walked out of the cemetery hand in hand, leaving the graves and the guilt and the ghosts behind. Boston's future spread before them, not the one they'd planned or expected, but something better, something real and hard-won, and theirs. The move to Seattle happened quickly. Evelyn gave Boston Memorial 2 months' notice and spent those weeks training her replacement and saying goodbye to colleagues who'd become friends. Sarah threw her a going-away party that doubled as an engagement celebration, and even expressed cautious optimism about Evelyn's future. I still don't completely understand your relationship, Sarah admitted as they hugged goodbye. But I see how happy you are, how alive. That's worth more than safety or convention or anything else. Thank you for being my friend even when you didn't approve, for saving lives alongside me, for everything. Evelyn's voice cracked. I'm going to miss you. Seattle's not that far, and you better invite me to the wedding. Front row seat, I promise. Danny came to say goodbye too, looking healthier than Evelyn had seen him in years. He'd gotten a job, joined a support group for gambling addiction, and was rebuilding his life one day at a time. Thank you, he said, hugging his sister tightly, for saving me, for believing I could change. I know I screwed up, and I know Victor only helped because of you, but I'm going to make it count. I'm going to be someone you can be proud of. I'm already proud of you. Just keep moving forward. That's all any of us can do. Victor's transition was more complicated. He spent weeks in meetings with Antonio and his cousins, finalizing the handoff of operations, ensuring everyone was protected and provided for. Some deals had to be quietly completed, some relationships carefully severed. It was delicate work, but Victor approached it with the same meticulous attention he'd once applied to criminal enterprise. The wedding was small and private, held in a garden in Seattle 3 months after they'd moved. Just family and close friends. Leo made the trip despite his age. Antonio sent his regards and a generous gift, along with a photo of Isabella thriving at Stanford, and Sarah flew out to stand as Evelyn's maid of honor. But the most meaningful moment came when Victor took Evelyn's hands at the altar and spoke his vows. I spent 15 years believing I was nothing but what I was born to be, a criminal, a monster, someone defined by violence and guilt. Then you knelt in the rain before my mother's grave and showed me that carrying pain doesn't make you strong, and that the bravest thing anyone can do is choose to heal. His voice was thick with emotion. You saved my life, Evelyn. Not once, not twice, but every single day since we met. You taught me that change is possible, that redemption isn't just a fantasy, and that love can transform even the darkest hearts. I promise to spend the rest of my life honoring that gift, to be the man you see in me even when I can't see it in myself, to build a life with you that's clean and good and everything we deserve. I love you. Today, tomorrow, and for all the days after. Evelyn's tears flowed freely as she spoke her own vows. I spent 2 years drowning in guilt, convinced that one failure defined me entirely. You showed me that life is more complicated than that good people make mistakes, that tragedy doesn't always require a villain, and that the dead don't want us to destroy ourselves in penance. You helped me forgive myself. You helped me see that being human means accepting imperfection, and that love means choosing someone despite knowing all their flaws and scars. She squeezed his hands. I promise to stand beside you as you build your new life, to believe in your capacity for change even when others doubt, to love you fiercely and completely in all your complicated, beautiful imperfection. You're my family, my partner, my home, and I choose you today and always. They exchanged rings, Victor's mother's wedding band for Evelyn, a new one she'd chosen for him, and sealed their promises with a kiss that felt like both an ending and a beginning. The reception was joyful and warm, full of laughter and dancing and hope. Leo gave a toast about family and second chances. Sarah told embarrassing stories from Evelyn's residency. And as the sun set over Seattle, Victor and Evelyn slipped away from the party to stand on a balcony overlooking the city lights. No regrets? Victor asked, his arm around her waist. Not a single one. You? Only that I didn't find you sooner. He kissed her temple. Though maybe we needed to go through everything we did to be ready for this. The loss, the guilt, the transformation. Maybe it all had to happen exactly as it did. Maybe. Or maybe we just got lucky. Evelyn leaned into him. Either way, I'm grateful. For you, for us, for this new life we're building. Speaking of building, Victor's voice held a nervous edge. I've been thinking about the future, about what comes next. And I'd like to start a family, someday. Not right away, but when we're ready. I want to give our children the childhood I never had, safe, stable, full of love instead of violence. He paused. What do you think? Evelyn's heart swelled. I think that sounds perfect. Scary, but perfect. Everything worth having is scary. True. She turned in his arms to face him. Let's give it a year. Get settled, establish our careers, make sure the transition is really complete. Then we can talk about children. Deal. They stood like that as night fell over Seattle, two people who'd found each other in the darkest circumstances and chosen to build light. The path behind them was marked with loss and violence and mistakes they couldn't undo. But the path ahead was full of possibility. 1 year later, Evelyn stood in the bathroom of their Seattle home staring at a positive pregnancy test. Her hands shook as she processed the news, joy and terror warring in her chest. She was going to be a mother. She and Victor were going to create a life together, not one born from guilt or duty or obligation, but from love. She found Victor in his office reviewing investment portfolios for the medical technology company that had become his passion. He looked up when she entered, immediately reading something in her expression. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Everything's right. Almost too right. She held up the test, watched understanding dawn on his face. We're... Victor stood so fast his chair fell over. Really? Really? I'm pregnant. We're having a baby. He crossed to her in 3 strides and pulled her into his arms, both of them crying and laughing. I can't believe it. After everything, after all the death and loss and darkness, we get to create life, together. Are you scared? Terrified. What if I'm a terrible father? What if I don't know how to be good at this? Then we'll figure it out together, just like we figured out everything else. Evelyn pulled back to look at him. You're going to be an amazing father, Victor. You're kind and protective and you understand sacrifice. Our child is so lucky to have you. No, I'm the lucky one. To have you, to have this second chance, to have a future I never thought possible. He placed his hand on her still flat stomach. Thank you for loving me, for believing in me, for giving me this. 7 months later, on a snowy January morning, Margaret Rose Moretti was born. She had Evelyn's eyes and Victor's dark hair, and when she wrapped her tiny hand around her father's finger, Victor wept. Margaret, Evelyn whispered, watching her husband hold their daughter with infinite gentleness. After your mother, if that's okay. It's perfect. She would have loved this. Loved you, loved her granddaughter. Victor's voice was thick with emotion. I wish she could have met you, could have seen that I finally found my way to something good. She knows. Wherever she is, she knows. Evelyn touched their daughter's soft cheek. And she'd be proud of you, of the man you've become, the father you're going to be. I know I am. They brought Margaret home to a house filled with love and safety and all the hope they'd fought so hard to earn. The nursery was painted soft yellow, filled with books and toys and everything a child could need. And as Evelyn rocked their daughter to sleep that first night, singing soft lullabies, she thought about the journey that had brought them here. From a rainy night in a cemetery to this moment of perfect peace. From drowning in guilt to building a life full of purpose. From 2 broken people to a family. It hadn't been easy. The scars remained. Evelyn still sometimes dreamed about the patients she'd lost. Victor still occasionally woke from nightmares about his violent past. But they faced those demons together, supporting each other through the hard moments and celebrating the beautiful ones. As Margaret grew, they told her stories. About her grandmother who'd died too young but had loved her son fiercely. About how her parents had met in a cemetery and found love in the midst of grief. About the importance of second chances and the power of choosing to change. On Margaret's 2nd birthday, they returned to Boston for the first time since moving. They visited Cedar Grove Cemetery together as a family, and Evelyn knelt before Margaret Moretti's grave with her daughter in her arms. This is your namesake, she told the little girl. Your grandmother. She was strong and brave, and she loved your daddy very much. Victor knelt beside them, his hand on Evelyn's shoulder. Thank you, Mom, for everything, for raising me as best you could, for loving me despite what I became, and for bringing Evelyn into my life, even if it happened in the most painful way possible. He paused. I'm happy now, truly happy, and I hope wherever you are, you know that you can rest knowing I found my way to something good. Little Margaret babbled and reached for the flowers they'd brought, and Evelyn felt the last pieces of her guilt finally dissolve. They'd all come so far, she and Victor, and even Margaret's ghost, if ghosts existed. They'd transformed tragedy into love, guilt into growth, and violence into peace. As they walked out of the cemetery for the final time, their daughter between them holding both their hands, Evelyn looked back once at the grave that had changed everything. "Goodbye, Margaret," she whispered. "Thank you for your son. Thank you for the gift of this life." Victor heard her, squeezed her hand. "Ready to go home?" "More than ready." They drove to the airport and flew back to Seattle, back to the life they'd built from ashes and grief and impossible choices. And as the plane lifted off, carrying them away from the past toward the future, Evelyn leaned her head on Victor's shoulder and felt complete. They'd survived. They'd healed. They'd found a way to transform the worst moments of their lives into the foundation for something beautiful. That was enough. More than enough. It was everything. Years later, when Margaret was old enough to understand, she would ask about the cemetery visits and the grandmother she'd never met, and Evelyn and Victor would tell her the truth, that sometimes the greatest love stories begin in the darkest places, that healing is possible even after terrible loss, and that the choice to keep living, keep loving, keep trying is the bravest choice anyone can make. But for now, in this moment, they were simply a family flying toward home, toward the life they'd fought for and earned and would protect with everything they had. The story that began with guilt and death had ended with love and life and hope. And that, Evelyn thought as she watched her daughter sleep peacefully in Victor's arms, was the greatest redemption of all.